Hey everyone, if you enjoy these recaps, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Now, let's get started.
A packed arena is going absolutely insane under the lights, and the announcer is screaming over the noise. He tells the crowd that they are watching something unbelievable right now. Millions of players have been thrown at each other across hundreds of battlefields, and there have been so many twists and comebacks that nobody can keep track anymore. But only one champion is left standing at the end of it all. A promo image splashes across the giant stadium screen, and it shows a young woman posing next to the words "strongest gamer." The whole arena loses its mind. The announcer keeps going. He tells everyone that this girl never ran from a single fight. She rushed every opponent head-on, and she has done what nobody else has managed to do. She has dragged the myth out of the virtual world and carved it into reality itself. The final leaderboard climbs up the screen, but only one name matters. He starts hyping up the crowd to burn this name into their memory, because they are looking at the very first champion of the League of Streaming. Her name is Shin Hyun. She stands at the center of the stage and lifts the trophy above her head. The announcer's voice cracks with pure excitement. He starts praising her reaction speed and says it seems to slice moments in half. He praises her intuition and says it cuts sharper than raw precision. Then he talks about her mechanics and says nobody has ever managed to copy them. He declares that Shin Hyun has stepped beyond being just a player and walked straight into legend. Another announcer off to the side tells the audience that Hyun is about to make her professional debut after this stage. She just smiles and tosses out a casual response, and the screen bursts into gold. A single question glows over the crowd about who will take the glory next season. 6 years later, a modern research center rises against a bright morning sky. Deep inside the labs, a sleek capsule slides open with a soft hiss, and out steps a young man with messy dark hair and tired eyes. He is still shaking off the dizziness from the dive. This is Jin Sejun, and he is our boy at the center of this whole story. Waiting beside the capsule is a woman in a crisp white lab coat. Her name tag reads Oh Ji-hye, and she is the R&D Center Research Director. She asks him how it felt to play a game again after so long. Our boy flexes his fingers and admits that this time he barely feels dizzy at all. His body even feels lighter than he remembers. Ji-hye's face brightens, and she waves him over to her workstation. She explains that this new capsule pushes every piece of technology they have to its absolute limit. She says that even people with physical impairments can use it without any problems, and someone with a really low sync rate can dive in safely as long as they respect the daily time limit. She looks right at Sejun when she says this, because he is exactly that kind of person. The young man listens quietly and then asks the only question that actually matters to him. He asks how much it costs. Ji-hye's cheerful smile freezes for a second before she tells him the machine costs 100 million won. Our boy's brain grinds to a hard stop. He repeats the word million back at her like she must have said it wrong. Ji-hye just pulls up his bank balance on the screen, and it shows a grand total of 458 won. She points out with this little grin that yes, the price might be a little burdensome for him. Then her smile turns sly, and she tells him that this is exactly why she has a special proposal for him. She asks if he wants to hear it. The story rewinds a step to explain how any of this even makes sense. A capsule is a device that drops modern people body and mind straight into virtual reality, and it feeds every craving that industry can imagine. But what people are most obsessed with above everything else is games. Big flashy skills and dramatic boss battles and entire worlds that feel more real than the actual real world. That is where the fever lives. Sejun's own voice picks up the story from there. He got pulled into back when the world first caught the fever. Every class and every weapon and every fantasy was on the menu for him. But less than a year after he started, everything crashed. An error screen flashed across his vision, and his body went limp inside the capsule, and blood ran down his face. The reason was simple, and it was brutal. His synchronization rate sat at 10. That number measures how convincingly the brain accepts virtual reality as real, and the average person sits at 60. Our boy's number was the lowest ever recorded, and it was so far off the charts that his brain just could not handle any dive at all. He remembers all this on the bus now, and he is scrolling capsule game clips on his phone while the vehicle rattles under him. Every review makes it sound so easy. Every clip makes it sound like anyone can just jump in. He lets out a slow sigh at the screen. 100 million is still an insane amount of money. He thinks to himself that if he had never touched a capsule game in the first place, he would not be sitting here now quietly wanting to touch one again. The question loops through his head as the bus pulls into the night. Why did he start playing capsule games again in the first place? Back at the apartment, the place is lit only by the flicker of a huge television. Sprawled on the couch with snacks in hand is Kim Taewoo. He is Sejun's roommate and a veteran streamer who has been at it for years. Taewoo whistles at the screen and mutters that the scale is absurd and that every active pro is turning up for this event match. The broadcast flashes the words Shin Hyeon vs Challenger 1, and Taewoo starts cackling and says God Hyeon is about to give somebody a lesson. The young man walks in and asks what Taewoo is watching that is so loud. Taewoo tells him it is a league event match and that it is honestly incredible right now. Sejun casually asks whether the league is really that famous because he keeps seeing ads for it everywhere. Taewoo almost falls off the couch. He stares at our boy like the guy just insulted his entire family and demands to know whether he has lost his mind. Then Taewoo drops into full lecture mode. He tells Seojin that the league is short for the League of Streaming and a regular tournament pulls in 1 million viewers in Korea alone. He says if you add the overseas audience, the total blows past 15 million people watching a single event. Setting the pro leagues aside, it is the largest competition in the entire streamer scene. Our boy asks what weapons players usually pick. Taewoo shrugs and says that bows exist and magic exists. All the classic options are in there. But then he leans forward and tells Sejun that swords are still the strongest choice. The guy repeats the word swords under his breath and something quiet locks into place behind his eyes. Taewoo keeps rolling. He warns Sejun that just because a guy picks a sword does not mean everything works out. He says he tried to show off with a sword last year going for the grand prize and got eliminated almost immediately. Then he pouts and adds that in theory any streamer can enter regardless of how popular they are. But in the next breath he contradicts himself and admits it is basically impossible to qualify if you are not already well known. Then Taewoo squints at the young man and asks why he is suddenly grilling him about all this. He points out that Seojin has never shown any interest in capsules or streaming before. Our boy mutters that it is nothing and his mind drifts back to that research center hallway. Jihye had stood in front of him beside that gleaming capsule and told him something interesting. She said that if he agreed to compete in the tournament she would specially lend him the machine free of charge until the competition ended. This year the league was being hosted by Travel and the new capsule model had been added as the grand prize. She told him the deal was simple: win it or hand it back. Then she had tilted her head and asked him what he was going to do. Then Taewoo drops into full lecture mode. He tells Seojin that the league is short for the League of Streaming and a regular tournament pulls in 1 million viewers in Korea alone. He says if you add the overseas audience the total blows past 15 million people watching a single event. Setting the pro leagues aside, it is the largest competition in the entire streamer scene. Back on the couch in the present, Seojin swallows a chip and casually floats a question into the air. He asks whether he should try entering Leos too. Taewoo has his mouth full and mumbles yeah sure Leos, whatever. Then his brain catches up half a second late and he whips his head around demanding to know what Seojin just said. The guy's grin sharpens. He tells Taewoo calm as anything that he is going to try participating in Leos. He asks straight-faced whether Taewoo does not think he might be pretty good at it if he actually tried. Taewoo's jaw drops open. He asks whether Seojin thinks Leos is some national singing contest where any random person off the street can walk in and sign up. He grumbles that he cannot figure out where this confidence is even coming from. Our boy's gaze slides away. Something has been sitting on his mind lately and he knows it. He wonders why after all these years of walking away from it he suddenly wants to play capsule games again. His mind pulls him somewhere far older than this apartment. A massive sword hangs straight up in a bamboo grove and the blade is catching the light between the stalks. A younger version of himself walks robed and silent through the trees. This is from a life he never asked to remember. He wonders whether it is because he wants to feel again the glory he once knew as the sword god. Or maybe it is something else entirely. The bamboo whips aside and a bandit lunges from the ground with a blade raised high. Steel flashes in a single clean arc and blood erupts across the leaves. More attackers rush him from every angle and his past self cuts through them without even slowing down. Bodies drop and wind howls through the emptied grove. The lone figure stands at the center of the carnage with blood streaked across his cheek and his sword hanging loose at his side. Seojin comes back to the present and he is still staring at nothing. The question finally finishes itself in his head, or is it because he remembers his past life? Some memories claw their way back up whether Sejun wants them there or not. This one has surfaced again. It is the memory of a secret black market that only opens under a full moon and its crooked rooftops are hunched beneath the sky. In that place, even at its lowest and dirtiest bottom, a body they treated as merchandise waited to be picked up and used. That slave was him. In his past life, behind the memory a red splashed silhouette rises with a blade already drawn. Long dirty hair veils a small face and a single red plum petal drifts across the dark. A voice that is calm and warm asks the child whether he would like to come along. The boy lifts his head slowly. Standing over him with robes fluttering and marked with red plum flowers is a middle-aged man with a soft, patient smile. Our boy's voice continues quietly and he says that if Master had not appeared back then the whole story would have been different. Inside a lit room, a tiny past-life version of Sejun kneels on the floor while the Master sits across from him and offers him a life he never dreamed he could reach. The story of a prodigy pulled back from the brink of despair. The heavy responsibility of walking the orthodox path while dealing with envy and impossible expectations from everyone around him. Standing tall in blue-black robes with his hair tied in a top knot, the past self, who was once called the Sword God, rises in the middle of the memory. Without that beginning, none of it would have happened either. Present-day Sejun's face softens and the word master slips out of him under his breath. He wonders just a little bitterly what the point of having been the Sword God in a past life even is now. That quiet moment shatters when Taewoo jabs a finger straight at his face and snaps that he is a crazy bastard. The young man blinks and he is completely thrown off. He asks what Taewoo just said to him. Taewoo repeats it with his whole chest. He says that Sejun is a crazy bastard. Then Taewoo unloads on him. He points at the borrowed capsule sitting in the corner and demands to know whether our boy really thinks buying something that expensive just to sign up for the League of Streaming makes any sense at all. He wants to know whether the guy has any idea how strict Leo's entry requirements actually are. Taewoo tells Sejun bluntly that unless he is already a decently popular streamer, he cannot even step through the door. Taewoo keeps rolling. He asks whether Sejun thinks gaining popularity is easy. He rattles off the whole checklist a streamer needs to survive. Talking skills and game sense and humor. Even video editing on top of 1,000-hour grinds most viewers never see. He pulls up examples on a nearby screen. A cheerful streamer with a burger sponsorship. Then a fast highlight clip. Then a guy teabagging an enemy corpse for laughs. Then a montage of hard cuts and click-heavy edits. Then Taewoo pulls up the ugly side. He tells Sejun that even if a streamer does all of that, there are still countless people out there who fail purely because nobody watches them. On the screen, a lonely dead stream sits at a single viewer while cruel chat messages scroll past. He asks how the young man expects to pull off any of this when he has not even used a capsule once. Our boy thinks for a moment. Then he asks quietly whether there is any way to succeed purely through skill. Taewoo mutters that this bastard is really persistent and lets out a long dragged-out sigh. Then in a lower voice he admits that actually yes, there is a way. Above the money and the personality and the editing, one path burns brighter than every other. A person can just be the top of the top. Korea's #1 pro gamer, more popular than the biggest celebrities. Taewoo tells Sejun that all he has to do is be better than Shin Hyun. The guy's expression barely moves. He looks Taewoo dead in the eye and answers calm as anything that he is better than her. Then he adds quietly that actually he has used a capsule before, a long time ago. Taewoo nearly explodes. He tells our boy that this is seriously ridiculous and that this attitude will not do at all. He decides on the spot that Sejun needs a real lesson delivered straight into his ribs. Taewoo points at the capsule and orders the young man to get in there right now. He says that if Sejun's skills really are better than Shin Hyun's, then Taewoo will do all the housework from now on. Actually no, wait. If they are even better than his own skills, then he will do the housework. Sejun's mouth curls into a slow, satisfied smile and he agrees to the deal on the spot. The capsule lid slides shut with a soft hiss. A blue system window blooms across Sejun's vision and it announces that the virtual reality world is connecting and that time remaining sits at 10 seconds. So this is what it means to be a streamer. The young man leans back against the cushioned interior. Streaming is a field he has never had a scrap of interest in, and he knows that about himself. His freshly created ID hangs in the window, and it reads Jin Sejun, but his mind slips into another place first. That long-haired figure from a life ago walks slowly through a wash of bright light. A voice that carries the shape of memory tells him that everyone starts out worse, at more things than they are ever good at. Anyone who hesitates just because he has not tried something before will never reach anywhere at all. A petal drifts past his old robed self and a single sharp eye burns through the light. Then the light breaks. Sejun opens his eyes inside a warm wooden dojo and sunlight is filtering down through wide temple beams. He turns slowly on his heels and takes it all in and starts to murmur something about the place, but a system window cuts him off. It chimes that Kim Taewoo has entered the training ground. Taewoo strolls in from across the hall and asks whether our boy is here already. Sejun answers that he is and asks what this place actually is. Taewoo tells him this is the training ground and it is a basic game built directly into every capsule. It is a place where players fight a sparring AI to set a record. The guy casually raises a wooden practice sword he has been handed and asks whether he cannot just fight Taewoo instead. Taewoo mutters that he does not know how to hold back properly and that Seojin might actually end up bleeding. Then Taewoo brings out the tutorial. He introduces the sparring AI itself, and it is a slim white robotic figure with a beetle-shaped faceplate. The AI runs 10 levels, and every level up makes it noticeably stronger. Level 10 is the peak, and here is the twist. Level 10 mimics the record of whoever holds the top rank on the leaderboard for clearing level 9. Taewoo tells Seojin that Shin Hyeon has held that level 10 spot for 5 years straight. Taewoo taps at a floating settings panel. He warns the young man that even challenging level 10 in the first place requires clearing level 9 first, and that just clearing 9 is nowhere close to easy. Seojin is quietly fiddling with his own settings window across the hall, and he only murmurs a distracted huh. Then a blue system prompt snaps open around the AI's body. A dual state has been created and the match will begin shortly. The AI drops into a fighting stance with its sword raised. Taewoo whips around with his eyes bulging. He demands to know what Seojin just picked and what level he chose. He warns our boy not to tell him that he skipped straight ahead. The AI does not wait for the argument to finish. It bursts forward and its sword flashes down in a hard diagonal. Seojin brings his own blade up in a single crisp motion, and the two swords crash together in a shower of blue sparks. The AI presses hard and the young man holds the line without giving an inch. Taewoo mutters that there is something seriously off with this bastard. Seojin rolls his wrist and answers the pressure with a fast counter. Blue light traces the arc of his blade as he cuts across the AI's guard, and the machine staggers half a step back. Taewoo scowls and grumbles that our boy is acting really arrogant. The guy keeps moving. He weaves inside the AI's second swing and drives a clean slash into its side. The strike lands with a hard crack and the AI's HP number plunges as 147 flickers over its chest. The AI skids back on its heels and its stance is rattled for the first time. A quiet question forms in the back of Taewoo's head as he stares. Was that a fluke? The AI does not give him time to answer though. It plants a foot and lunges in again, faster this time, and its sword sweeps in a hard horizontal arc. The young man does not flinch. He drops his shoulder low and unloads a full-body swing. A curved blue crescent explodes off his blade and tears straight through the AI's guard. The steel splits clean through and the AI's torso separates in a spray of blue sparks. Its arms fly wide and its lower half crashes into the wooden floor. Taewoo's mouth drops open. The upper half of the AI lands in a broken heap across the boards. Sejun straightens up. His breath is steady and his hood is settled back on his shoulders. He walks past the wreckage toward the crumpled body, and the system finally catches up. A blue window blooms in the air. It says he has won the level 9 duel. HP 10 out of 100. Time 2 minutes 23 seconds. Current rank 107th. Taewoo's jaw hits the floor for real this time. He points at the ruined AI and stammers that this cannot be right. That was level 9. The AI that our boy just carved in half was actually level 9. Then his brain lurches ahead of his mouth. Wait a minute, he mutters, because that means next is going to be. The system does not wait for him to finish. The air near the wreckage shimmers and a new figure steps out of the light. Same white body, but this one glows with sharp yellow and orange plating along its arms and chest. A clean sword hangs at its side. This is level 10, and Taewoo breathes the name into the sudden quiet, because this one is Shin Hyeon. Our boy's shoulders lift and drop with a slow, heavy breath. Sweat runs down the side of his jaw. He tightens his grip on the sword and pulls the hood back over his head. What the hell is going on with this guy? Back at the Surface Korea Research Center, a young junior researcher trails after Oh Ji-hae through a corridor lined with capsule bays. She has been chewing on a question since the previous day, and she finally spits it out. The researcher calls out to the director softly and then blurts out why on earth Ji-hae did that. Ji-hae plays innocent and asks what she means. The researcher throws both hands at the empty rental slot and blurts out the words free rental. She points out that Ji-hae did not have to go that far for a single test subject. The researcher pouts that Sejun does not even look like he could qualify for Leo S in the first place. Ji-hae's smile settles into something more serious. She admits quietly that she just hates seeing talent go to waste. The researcher blinks and repeats the word talent back at her. Ji-hae pulls up a tablet and swipes to Sojun's file. She tells the researcher that even back then, when Sojun's synchronization rate could not even reach the minimum threshold, she already thought he was amazing. Stats and acquired skills scroll across the screen, and old numbers from 7 years ago are sitting right beside the fresh ones from yesterday. She notes with a soft pride that his skills have improved a lot since then. The blonde researcher folds her arms and admits that qualifying might still be tough for him even so. Jihei's smile sharpens, but if he does manage to get in, she tells the researcher that she genuinely thinks he could win it all. A neon sign glowing "Battle in Progress" hangs above the capsule bay. Inside the virtual dojo, our boy is still very much in progress. Steel meets steel with a hard ringing note as Sojun's blade catches the level 10 AI's swing. Sparks fan out between them, blue against orange, and both fighters skid a half step apart. From his corner of the dojo, Taewoo grips his own head and mutters that Sojun is not actually going to win, is he? A soft blue system prompt blooms in the air asking whether he would like to record. He grins and thinks that if our boy actually pulls this off, it is perfect broadcast material. Then the AI moves for real. A hot red slash tears across the space between them, and the level 10 body launches into a blur of angles and counterangles. The young man answers with a clean blue arc that keeps the machine honest, and the two of them trade blows across the wooden floor. He can feel it in his hands. Our boy watches the AI reset and reroute and try a fresh line of attack. He quietly admits to himself that this girl's talent is far greater than anyone he ever saw in his past life. Then a tiny chibi version of him raises a finger and clarifies with the most solemn face possible that there is of course one exception. A small arrow points cheerfully to a picture labeled "me." The chibi gives himself a nod. Taewoo is not sold on the philosophy hour though. He shouts from the sidelines demanding to know what Sojun is doing. Taewoo howls that our boy has no business chatting in the middle of a fight because how on earth could he possibly beat Shin Hyeon in the first place? The AI answers for both of them. A hard down strike whistles through the air, and this time Sojun does not sidestep. He plants his feet and lets the blade come down, and a small red HP-1 flashes over his chest as the strike lands. He rolls his shoulder and tests the sting and murmurs that it really does not hurt at all. There is no blood either. Virtual reality really is great, he tells no one in particular. Taewoo's mouth falls open in slow horror. He asks Sojun to please not tell him what he thinks just happened. Did Sojun actually take that hit on purpose? Our boy shrugs with the flattest possible face and answers that he was just curious. The level 10 AI does not wait for the joke to land. Its yellow-orange helm angles down and it explodes forward with the red visor burning through the dust. Sejun rolls his wrist and their blades meet with a sharp scrape. The AI presses the exchange and weaves inside his guard and comes back with a hard crosscut. The young man parries clean and redirects the tip past his shoulder by the width of a hair and answers with a horizontal slice that skims across the AI's chest plating. Sparks fountain off the joint. The AI stumbles into a half crouch with its sword scraping the wooden floor and its HP number ticks down to 4. It looks up at him through the orange visor and asks in a quiet mechanical voice why he is not attacking. The guy's grin softens into something wicked. Then he tells her that he will come to her. Our boy blurs forward. The AI throws a defensive line up in time, but his blade slices through the guard with no resistance at all. Sparks explode. 2 more strikes crash into the AI's shoulder and hip in rapid succession, and its own sword rings against his in a desperate second parry that fails almost immediately. Its voice breaks into a gasp. The metal frame stumbles backward across the floor with its arms flying wide and plating cracking open along the seams. Sejun drives a clean thrust into the exposed shoulder and the AI drops to one knee. He walks up slowly with the sword balanced at his side. The AI kneels there in front of him with its sword arm shaking. Our boy tells her casually that if she dedicates another 80 years to training, she might just be able to beat him. Then he brings the blade down in a single clean arc and the level 10 body falls forward in pieces of yellow-orange armor. A soft blue notification blooms in the air saying that he has won the duel. Somewhere in the wreckage another window follows quietly. The owner of level 10 is changing. Taewoo is frozen a few paces off with his jaw somewhere near the floor. He manages a strangled "hey." Sejun tilts his head and asks him whether beating Shin Hyeon is enough skill for a gaming stream. Taewoo cannot even answer him. The next day a bright morning sun rises over the apartment. Inside the balance of power has shifted dramatically. A miniature Sejun sits at the table waiting for tribute. A miniature Taewoo shuffles in with a tray and announces that his food has arrived. The young man eats a bite and sniffs and complains that the noodles are not cooked evenly. He grumbles that our boy has also not brought in the laundry yet. Sejun waves a chopstick and reminds him to do the dishes properly this time too. Off to the side Taewoo trudges past with a mop and a headband and mutters bitterly that he is the one who lost the bet, so why is he the one doing all of this? Then the guy heads to his room where the borrowed capsule sits gleaming in the corner. He tells himself that he installed the game yesterday and that he might as well log in now and get things ready for the stream. The capsule lid rises and he steps inside wearing a black and white broken kite shirt. The lid drifts shut over him. His eye opens inside a bright white space with no walls and no ceiling and no clear line of floor. Our boy turns a slow circle and murmurs to himself, wondering aloud where he even is. A blue system notice fades into view beside him. This is the player's lobby, and it tells him to take his time preparing here before starting a game. Around the message, cheerful preview cards float past showing streamers greeting their viewers from decorated home lobbies. A cat-eared avatar and a cozy setup and all the personal touches. Seijin scratches his chin. He has seen streamers hang out with viewers from lobbies before, so this must be where they do it. He mumbles that he should probably decorate the place too at some point. Then he mutters alright and says it is time to start up travel. A large storefront unfolds in front of him labeled Travel, the #1 game streaming platform. Rows of live streams line the surface and thumbnails scroll past. Our boy watches it for a beat and then reminds himself quietly of the plan. For now he only has a single goal. A small podium graphic ticks past behind him counting 1 through 5. He needs to build a real reputation as a streamer, and it needs to be enough of one to walk into Leo's on his own name. A blue system banner fills the air announcing that the stream will begin shortly. The young man stands with his back to the storefront and announces that the game he has picked is Dawn of the Assassination Squad, with the subtitle Shadows in the City. A narrator voice picks up the pitch. This is a medieval assassination game where players eliminate targets using highly unconventional methods. Wide shots pan across a lit-up castle at night with Gothic clock towers and warm-lit windows. It surpassed 2 million viewers on its opening day. Gentlemen in tall hats and ladies with parasols stroll a cobblestone street below, completely unaware of the eyes above them. Even a week later, the game's popularity has not slowed down at all. A user review pops up with a lukewarm remark that it is pretty decent, and 500 hours on record sit right underneath. It is the perfect game for a beginner to start with. A grappling hook whips across the night sky and hooks into the stone edge of the clock tower. A dark figure launches upward with a blade at his hip and his cloak snapping in the wind behind him. Boots scrape the roof tiles and the figure lands in a low crouch under the full moon while distant church bells ring across the city. Our boy rises slowly. Golden hair spills across his forehead and a hood settles neatly at his back. Sojin's assassin avatar tilts his head into the moonlight and lets a slow grin spread across his face. Well then, he says quietly to himself and to whoever is watching, it is time to get started. A bright blue system banner flashes across the sky announcing that the stream is now live. It reads first time streaming and first VR game too. A total newbie playing the game, and anyone want to give the guy some tips? Our boy stares at it and sweats. This is the stream title Taewoo picked for him, and he genuinely wonders whether it will actually work. Taewoo had promised with total confidence that he is Seijin's streaming senior and that our boy just needs to trust in his boy and that he will reel in a lordly amount of viewers for him. It is not actually his first VR game either, but nobody in chat needs to know that. Beyond the neon title, the medieval city stretches out under the moon. Warm-lit windows glow across Gothic rooftops and church spires rise against the sky. A lone cathedral clock tower catches the moonlight above the noise of the streets below. The young man quietly admits that the graphics are great and reminds himself that he should enjoy things while he can. Then a beautiful voice cuts through the wind behind him. It calls his name softly and says, "Dane, listen. This mission could get him killed." His body turns on its own. Standing in the shadows behind him is a hooded blonde woman, and her name blooms in curling letters beside her image. Her name is Christina. She warns him again that this mission is dangerous. Dane's mouth moves without Seijin's say-so and answers, half laughing, that with her it has never not been dangerous. Somewhere in the corner of the guy's vision, a chibi version of him blinks in surprise. Right, it is a tutorial and the dialogue comes out on its own. He notes with quiet fascination that his voice sounds different too, and figures this must be the character named Dane. He decides that this is honestly fascinating. Christina folds her arms. She tells him that if Dane is going to kill others, he should be prepared to die himself. Dane exhales slowly and mutters that yeah, alright, fine. But still, he tells her she needs to be careful too because they might already be onto them. He waves a lazy hand at her and tells her not to worry and to just wait for him at the tavern. Christina looks up at him under the hood, and Dane's palm settles softly on her hair for a moment before he lifts it away. Christina hands him a folded note and speaks the passphrase in a hush. She tells him that there is no truth and that he must doubt endlessly. Dane grins over his shoulder with silver hair catching the moonlight and finishes the line for her by adding even the chaos. Then he fires a wire from his gauntlet and hooks a far rooftop and vanishes into the night. Crows scatter into the sky behind him. More acrobatics follow. Dane's body swings from the wire and kicks off a wall and lands in a low crouch on the next roof over. A soft blue system notice fades into the air announcing that the tutorial auto mode has ended. Our boy blinks and his body suddenly weighs its own weight again. He looks around and adjusts the collar of his cloak and murmurs, "All right. If he goes this way now, then the pipe he apparently needs to grab should be right here." But it is nowhere on the wall in front of him. He raises an eyebrow. He would formally take back what he just said about the game being helpful. The system does not leave him hanging for long though. A prompt fades in helpfully instructing him to climb the pipes. Dane mutters that he has to grab that thing and haul himself up, and he grabs on. His body handles the grip on its own again. He murmurs to himself that there is some kind of movement correction in play here, and admits that the immersion is amazing. As he reaches the top, he wonders out loud whether the tutorial is really over. Another window pops up in answer. A new window pops up with the tutorial quest for an assassination mission. The objective is to assassinate Ettore. The description reads that Ettore is a high-ranking noble and a mid-level manager of a secret society that traffics street orphans. The assassination squad has assigned this hit to their member Dane. The clear condition is Ettore's death. Seojin reads it slowly and then shrugs and figures that all he needs to do is kill this Ettore guy. A soft glimmer flashes at the edge of his vision and a hand-drawn map unfolds beside him. It traces the route through the city in a yellow dotted line all the way to Ettore's estate. Another prompt tells him to use the rope to descend. He grabs it and starts down, but somewhere in his head our boy's curiosity presses a hidden button. He asks himself in chibi form whether he really needs to go all the way down the rope. There is a faster way obviously. He can just jump. Real Dane exhales and tells the empty night that here goes nothing and slices the line clean through. He drops and lands with a hard crunch and an involuntary ouch. He mutters that he guesses that does not work either. That is when he notices the small floating window in the corner of his vision. Chat is exploding. Someone types that if he is playing this badly, he is a legit newbie for real. Another chimes in that this is exactly why they watch newbie streams. A third confesses that they used to do the same thing back when they were new. The guy blinks and finally remembers that he is streaming right now. A viewer counter blinks nearby and 4 people are watching. He wonders quietly when 4 people even joined because he had figured there would be 0. Maybe the title actually worked. Dane glances at their usernames and nearly loses his nerve. Patient on a white horse. The best defense is Winter Steel Great Shield. Public restroom brick extortion king. He mumbles that there is something seriously wrong with the ID trend in this game. Then Taewoo's voice floats back to him in memory. His friend had told him that when he first starts he should practice filling the silence on his own. Even if there are no viewers or just one, he should not fixate on the numbers. What matters most, Taewoo had said, is interaction. The reason people come to watch a small stream instead of a giant one is exactly that. They want to be seen. In the giant streams, messages fly past too fast and get buried. Down here everyone can hear everyone. Sejin decides to try chatting lightly first. Someone in chat asks whether the streamer is really a newbie and he confirms it. They tell him they already checked his profile and it is legit because his account was created 2 days ago. He asks whether they can really check that and they tell him yes and remind him that he can set it to private if he wants. He mumbles that sounds annoying and chat laughs at him. Someone finally cuts to the point and asks when he is planning to actually start the quest. Dane arrives at Count Ettore's mansion and the whole mood shifts hard. A blood-red moon hangs over a gothic estate crawling with iron fences and dead trees and crows crying overhead. Chat lights up with haunted house shivers and remarks about the crow sound design being unhinged. Dane admits that he made it here pretty quickly and then asks the empty air what he is supposed to do first. Can he just walk right in through the front? Chat marvels that the newbie has some guts and someone reminds him to check the note Christina handed him earlier. "Oh right," he mutters and remembers the note. He unfolds it. A blueprint blooms out of the paper and rearranges itself in the air. It becomes a full 3-dimensional model of the mansion, complete with rooms and corridors and secret passages. Enemy positions are marked across every floor. Ettore, the note tells him, is in the 2nd floor bedroom. There are roughly 20 enemies scattered through the estate. Dane glances at his inventory bar and 2 icons blink to life. The first is a slim cane with a hidden blade inside. The second is a gauntlet with a wire launcher on the wrist and a concealed assassination blade along the back of the hand. Sejin tells the chat that he got a sword stick and a gauntlet. Chat cheerfully confirms that those are just the tutorial's basic weapons. He draws the blade from the cane with a soft metallic slide and tests the tip in the air and decides quietly that this should be enough. Then he squares his shoulders toward the front gate of the mansion. Alright then, he decides. He is going in. Chat detonates immediately. People are typing wait and telling him to stop. They call him a crazy newbie and beg him to stop. The young man freezes with his hand halfway to the gate and blinks. Sejin asks flatly why they are freaking out. Someone types that he obviously did not read the rest of the note Christina gave him. Another tells the rest of the chat to leave him alone because he is supposed to learn by dying. Sejin narrows his eyes. Something about the mood feels weird. Can he really not just walk in through the front gate? Chat comes back with a question of its own and asks whether he even knows how to do a warrior play. Our boy tilts his head at the chat window. He asks what that is. Chat obliges with a proper explanation. In this game, if a player gets caught during a mission, the guards get significantly stronger and the mission turns into a running gunfight, so most players sneak around and stay in the shadows. But very rarely a veteran throws all of that away and walks straight through the front gate and simply kills everyone in the open. That is what the community calls a warrior play. The guy considers it and then asks whether it is impossible to clear the tutorial that way. Chat admits that nobody has actually done it yet. Someone tried for 10 hours straight and gave up and planned to come back after finishing the main story instead. Even the hardcore forums have not heard of anyone succeeding. Not impossible, then our boy notes quietly. Chat sighs and concedes that in theory it is possible, if his controls happen to be somewhere around Shin Haeun's level. Sejin's mouth curls into a slow, sharp smile at the name. Shin Haeun, he murmurs to himself. Well, then he is going to give it a try. The blood-red moon burns above the Gothic mansion and crows scatter from the dead trees as Dane approaches the gate. Up close, our boy admits quietly that the pressure of the place is no joke, but whatever. He rolls his shoulders and lets it wash off him. The chat window blooms in the corner of his vision and messages flood past. One viewer bets that the streamer dies right here, and another wants to open the pool for how many attempts it takes before he quits. A third types that it is impossible anyway, so he might as well die fast and reset. Seo Jun notes with a quiet grin that 3 more viewers slipped in while he was baiting the crowd. It really was the answer. He tells himself that as long as none of them cross the line, this kind of energy is honestly fine. Metal scrapes on metal at the front gate. 2 armored guards step out from under the archway with swords already drawn, and the taller one demands to know who goes there. Chat lights up with fresh mockery. Caught in 5 seconds flat, they say. They never doubted him for a second. They are just here to watch him die and laugh. Dane straightens up under the hood and tells them with the flattest voice possible not to worry because he has already gotten the hang of it. The second guard raises his weapon and roars at him to reveal his identity. Dane closes the distance instantly. He wants to feel out the guard's speed first and lets a casual probing strike ride out at the taller one's shoulder. Steel meets cane with a hard clang and the guard blocks it clean. Not bad, the young man notes internally. Then guard 2 arcs in from behind him with a full downward chop and something quiet in Sejong's chest lights up. Strength drops into his toes. He lowers his stance and twists the wrist holding the cane. He reads the incoming blade in a single breath and moves the shaft perpendicular into its path with precisely the right timing. The clash cracks the air. The background ripples. Guard 2 staggers and his sword arm goes soft and his whole body sinks into a groggy stumble. Dane blinks at the result. He does not waste the opening. He drives the tip of the cane straight into the guard's throat. The HP number flashes -1000 above the man's head, and he crumples to the cobblestones on the spot. Dane glances at his cane and asks quietly whether they usually die this easily. Chat detonates into a wall of question marks. Someone says he totally lucked out. Another says that is insane. One tells him he should have bought a lottery ticket. Someone else snaps back asking what is insane about it because it was pure fluke. A brief silence stretches through chat. Then the same viewer who explained the game to him earlier types out a proper answer. Normally they tell him a parry means deflecting an opponent's swing, but in this game a plain block does nothing at all. If a player strikes perpendicular to the enemy's incoming blade at exactly the right timing, the enemy locks into a groggy state and takes massive damage from any hit that lands there. That is a parry. The timing window is so tight they add that even retired pros who came into the game confident in their mechanics, tried over and over and eventually gave up on Musu runs entirely. Someone else snarks that those pros retired because they were washed up. But even pros struggled with it, our boy thinks. Our boy remembers the level 9 AI Taewoo called the gatekeeper of pros and quietly figures that if the retired pros were only around that tier, then that lines up perfectly. He murmurs to himself that judging by that level of skill, the so-called pros are probably all roughly there. Right, Sejin says out loud with his hand under his chin. Then he guesses it makes sense that the parry is meant to be difficult. Because to parry, a player has to perfectly anticipate an incoming attack and then move his body at exactly the angle he intends. Chat asks him if he actually understands the concept now. Chibi Sejin gives them a firm thumbs up and confirms that yes he does. Then turn back right now, chat tells him. For real, they add, or things are about to get very ugly. Dane blinks at the chat and asks why. It was easy though. Chat goes absolutely feral. Then one voice cuts through. A viewer named I am the Shuzin Assassin types quietly that he does not actually think those movements were a fluke. That is not ordinary. The rest of the chat piles on immediately. They mock him, asking who does this guy think he is? Not ordinary his ass, they say. Who even is he? Poor Jose, an assassin, turns into a laughingstock in real time. Something moves in Sijin's chest as he reads it. Back in his past life it had been exactly the same. Because of his lowly background and his complete lack of affiliation, even when he cleanly defeated disciples of the great sects, his skills had always been dismissed and looked down on. The sects would insist their disciple had been drinking the night before, or had gone easy, or had simply let their guard slip. Those were excuses more shameful than admitting defeat outright. Of course the chat is not the Murim he tells himself, but in essence it is the same thing. Whatever the case, he decides that he only has to prove himself with results. He raises the cane and moves. The next enemies arrive fast. 5 soldiers armored with shields come rushing in after being alerted by the first shouts. Dane lances the cane out at the throat of the farthest soldier on the left, so fast the man does not even see the tip coming. The soldier beside him reacts on reflex and knocks the cane wide. Then the soldier Dane targeted swings his sword down at the exposed opening in Dane's stance. The young man has been waiting for exactly this. He reverses his grip and drops the cane perpendicular into the descending blade. The clash cracks and the world ripples again. The soldier locks up in the same groggy stumble as the guards before him, and Dane slams the cane into his throat and drops the HP to 0. The last standing soldier scrambles backward terrified and shouts at his fallen partner to hurry and call for reinforcements. Dane's cane spears through his throat before he finishes the sentence. 6 are down now. The first 2 guards and the runner who screamed for help and 3 of the ambush squad. The rest of the mansion is still closing in from deeper inside. Dane wipes the cane clean and murmurs that makes 6 taken care of. Chat is losing its mind. Wait, they type. Who exactly is the host? Is he really a beginner? I am the Joseon assassin is spamming that he was right in a chain that fills half the window. Someone else asks how a guy who could not even climb over a rooftop properly has suddenly become this good. Patient on a white horse admits that they honestly thought this was some noob stream to babysit, and it turned out to be a straight-up pro-veteran stream. I am the Joseon assassin loops on asking who he is over and over again. Dane's chibi finally sighs and drops the hammer. He tells the chat evenly that if I am the Joseon assassin spams anymore he is getting banned. The viewer replies instantly and politely with a yes sir. Dane tells him he is grateful the viewer was the first person to recognize the skill, but there is a line. Then a new viewer named LKIOP1644 snarks back that a small-time nobody stream is nothing to be afraid of getting banned from and dares Dane to ban them. A blue system window blooms announcing that LKIOP1644 has been banned. Done, Chibi, Dane says brightly. Chat erupts in cheers, telling the banned viewer to get out and celebrating the first ban of the season. Someone even points out that reflex speed on the ban button is honestly its own kind of pro-level talent. Dane checks the viewer count. 6 now. He thinks quietly that with a reception this warm, maybe he really is doing well at this whole streaming thing. In this life he has barely lived a normal person's normal life, so he cannot really tell. And in his previous life he almost never stepped forward first anyway because his background never let him. In the Murim, background was everything. What you ate and the martial arts you learned. Your master and the people you met. All of it hinged on where you were born and where you belonged. Sijin had been an orphan pulled out of a foreign land and taken in only because a Manhwa elder from the Alliance recognized his talent at the black market. Even after his talent grew, nobody could tolerate Manhwa absorbing him. The other great sects pushed back constantly. He ended up belonging to no sect at all. A martial artist who represented nothing and whom nothing represented, yet his talent alone blotted out the heavens. The solitary sword god. Meanwhile, Chat is trying to squeeze the actual technique out of him, but seriously they ask how is he this good at parrying? Does the newbie have some kind of secret? Dane pretends to think about it and answers straight-faced that a person just needs to remember their past life. Chat responds with a beautiful long chain of question marks. Someone types that the streamer's mental state is crazy. Or Dane adds mildly, they can just watch carefully and knock the enemy sword away vertically. Chat rages properly this time. They say he is gaslighting them while laughing, and that he is bullying viewers and having fun with it. Someone jokes that if Chat lets go the streamer is going to parry them too. Dane finally laughs out loud. Maybe he really was born for streaming after all. Then a new alarm cuts through the air. Footsteps pound somewhere nearby. A guard's voice yells that the intruder is over here, and another calls out that they have found him. Dane glances at the chat window and mutters that this is about to get interesting. 13 enemies flood into the courtyard. Every remaining soldier in the mansion minus Ittori himself has converged on Dane in one wave. Someone else tells him to just die here and skip the tutorial and move on to the real game because nobody beats Ittori anyway. Dane calmly spreads his arms and lets 8 of them ring him in. He has given up, chat says. It is over, they say. Then once the circle closes tight around him and every blade is inside striking range, our boy speaks quietly into the empty air. Our boy tells the chat to listen up. A newbie pulling off a 13-chain parry. Would they like to see that? Somewhere above the fight, a captain barks at his men to kill the intruder. Another voice cuts across the room shouting that there is only one enemy and no reason to fear him. Dane simply lets them come. In the 6-viewer chat, someone types out that this guy has to have eyes on the back of his head, because there is no other way to explain what they just watched. Then the cane spins. A wide silver arc catches one sword coming in from behind and deflects another blade slashing in from the side in the very same motion. Both guards crumple before they can even register what happened. The chat starts to unravel. One viewer swears the streamer must be a hidden pro and says he is betting everything on it. Another mocks him back and says even a pro cannot pull off what they are seeing. A third just spams that this is insane. Dane keeps moving through them, and it honestly looks like he has already read every one of their attacks before they throw them. 13 becomes 9, then 8, then 6, and each fallen soldier drops with a clean damage number floating over their head. A single yellow eye glints under the messy silver blonde bangs as our boy closes on the last standing guard. The fight ends without so much as a scratch on his cloak. Now the story pulls back to introduce a new face in the audience. This is the chat user tagged I am the Josian Assassin, and the community knows him simply as Joam. He is a hardcore fan of the Dawn of the Assassination Squad franchise, going all the way back to the PC days. He has poured thousands of hours into every previous title and tested this newest one during its beta phase. Joam truly believed nobody in the community played the game more seriously than he did. When the developers first announced that this installment would push assassination and stealth in their purest form and dared anyone to attempt loud high-tier plays, Joam cheered out loud. A brutal difficulty curve was exactly the challenge he had been begging for. But the reality hit him hard. The difficulty scaled so high that most players quickly stopped even trying, and every stream he opened had the same tired jokes. One streamer in a top hat sat on a park bench reading a newspaper next to a briefcase bomb. He was chuckling that once you figure out the target's pattern, all you need is for the box to blow up and the assassination succeeds. Chat around him howled that it was scary and barely counted as gameplay. Another streamer had crouched in the same shadow for 3 straight hours waiting for the target to appear while viewers begged him to try doing basic reconnaissance instead. Joam scrolled through streamer after streamer and grew more frustrated with each one. Nowhere could he find the ultimate high-level plays he had been searching for. The real assassination gameplay that had first pulled him into this world was just not out there. Then he spotted a recommendation for a tiny channel with a strange title. A first-time streamer and first-time VR player asking politely for veteran advice. Joam clicked in on impulse. Finally he shouts to his empty room. These are the high-tier plays he has been desperately searching for. This is it. Joam floods the chat with praise. He calls Dane the hope of high-level plays and demands to know just how far ahead this monster is looking. He hypes him as the greatest player the Assassination Squad has ever seen. Around him the other viewers are still stuck between disbelief and awe. One asks if it is even okay for their unworthy eyes to see something this clean. Another asks if Dane is using hacks. The young man finally looks at the chat and in that low, steady voice of his in-game avatar, asks why any of them are surprised. He just dodges what needs to be dodged, and deflects what needs to be deflected, he says. Chat loses it immediately. They accuse him of gaslighting them and scream in caps that they know it is not that simple. Our boy shrugs and tells them if they hate it that much he will just close the stream and they can find peace elsewhere. Instantly the tone flips. Viewers apologize and beg him to keep streaming. To his mild surprise, all 6 current viewers hit the follow button at once. 6 followers out of 6 viewers. Small numbers but a perfect 100%. With the small talk over, Dane walks toward the master bedroom on the 2nd floor to finish the mission. A massive spiked iron ball slams straight through the door and craters the floor where he stood a heartbeat ago. Chad is already howling that everyone else dies to that opening move at least once. The guy rushes in and slashes his cane across the throat of the man who just tried to kill him. Only a sliver of the health bar drops. He calmly asks the chat whether flails can be parried too, and viewers roast him for already trying to one-shot the boss when nobody else has even cleared this room. Standing behind the shattered doorframe is Ittori. He is a broad-shouldered figure in a dark red admiral-style coat with a chain necklace resting against his chest. His dark hair is slicked back and a mad grin cuts across his face. He laughs and calls Dane a dodging rat and promises to teach the little assassin the true taste of his flail. The huge iron ball starts crashing through walls and railings. It is splintering the mansion piece by piece as Dane backs away and reads the angles. In the corner of his vision, a countdown timer suddenly shimmers into view, showing 4 minutes and change until society reinforcements arrive and the mission auto-fails. Our boy blinks and mutters to himself in genuine surprise that he had no idea that was even there. The damage is not stacking up though. Ettore laughs that his body is immortal and no blade in the world will scratch him. Seijun starts asking himself whether it is possible to just chip the boss down over time. Then Joam's message drops into the chat. He writes that if you keep attacking the same spot the damage climbs and that this is the community's general consensus. Dane thinks it over and then quietly thanks Mr. Iam the Josen assassin for the tip. He drives the cane straight into the same wound on Ettore's throat. 70 damage bleeds off the health bar in one clean strike. Chat gasps and says his health dropped way more than before. They say Joam was right and that continuing to attack the same spot was the right answer all along. Ettore staggers back snarling that this bastard is asking to die. The timer keeps ticking down. 2 minutes then 1. Ettore hurls the flail in fury and the young man actually catches the handle mid-air and holds the weapon in place with both hands. Chat gasps that he really just caught that. Ettore roars at him to take his hands off his weapon and throws a wild punch with his free hand and tries to kick him away. Dane tilts his head aside and taps the shin with the cane to interrupt the kick and slashes the throat again on the same spot. Damage numbers explode across the screen. 100 then 200 then 300. Red slash marks pile on top of each other while viewers apologize to Ettore between bursts of laughter. The guy checks the remaining health and notes he needs one more clean hit. He calmly promises the chat that the final blow is coming. The last strike lands. Ettore's health hits 0 and a cutscene rips him out of the fight. His eyes bulge as he clutches at his throat. He howls that as a hound of the assassination squad Dane will not walk out alive and that he refuses to go down alone. Then the screen flashes white and the words "Mission Clear" bloom across the display with 40 seconds still left on the timer. Somewhere far away Joam sits back at his desk in stunned silence. Then he reaches for his mouse with steady hands. He opens the Dawn of the Assassination Squad community forum and drops in the recorded footage and starts writing the post that will change everything for a certain unknown streamer. A newbie on his first stream playing his first VR game just parried 13 enemies in the tutorial while cutting through the mobs. And this is the world's first video of taking down Ettore. Somewhere in a dark apartment Joam is still slumped in his gaming chair with his headphones half off and he is staring at the ceiling. He mutters to himself that this was actually insane and that he genuinely cannot believe he got to witness the first clear of Ettore live. Then he leans back over his desk and starts refreshing the community forum where his post is already climbing view counts by the minute. Videos and comments are piling on top of each other under his handle. Every corner of the Dawn of the Assassination Squad community is starting to hear about a certain no-name streamer. Back inside the game the cutscene is still running and Seijun no longer controls his own body. Dane is moving on autopilot now and he cannot react in time when the dying Ettore lunges back into the bedroom and rips apart a rune-covered parchment. A wave of red magic bursts outward and the air itself seems to catch fire. Dane barely gets to his feet as fire chews through the walls behind him. Guards outside spot Dane through the flames and shout that the assassin is right over there. They order the rest to catch him at all costs. The chase unfolds fast. Our boy vaults over the mansion wall and scrambles across rooftops and ducks around chimneys under the moon. An arrow whistles in from behind and punches straight through his shoulder. Dane tumbles down a cliff with nothing but rain and moonlight around him. One gauntleted hand reaches up toward the sky as gravity pulls him toward the river below. The story drifts to a different place entirely. Somewhere far downstream a man is standing at the edge of the sea watching the tide roll in. As he turns to leave he notices a dark shape washed up on the shoreline and walks over to check. Dane's body lies face down on the sand with his cloak soaked through and his armored hand curled loose against the rocks. The stranger crouches and calmly searches through the corpse's pockets. He pulls out a small brooch shaped in the form of an eagle in flight. This is the assassin's symbol of freedom. He slips it away and continues on his path. Then a message flashes across the display announcing that the game is switching to the player character. Control snaps back to Seijun. Chat instantly floods with tired jokes about how the cutscene has not changed at all. They say Dane always dies and that the protagonist is out here looting corpses right off the beach. The young man sighs and finally says out loud that if it were him he would have deflected that arrow and the fireballs both. Chat calls him the destroyer of emotional moments and tells him that honestly this actually sounds believable coming from him. He grumbles that watching his own face die in slow motion is way too much. Then he claps his hands together and asks what he is supposed to do now. His current spot is a warm tavern lit by sunset through the windows. Sitting behind the counter wiping cups is Christina, the golden-haired assassin contact from the tutorial. She is still in her hooded cloak and buckled brown vest. The game is practically screaming at him to walk over there. Our boy approaches and the second he gets close the auto progression kicks in and takes his mouth away from him again. Christina looks up and asks the customer if he needs anything. He hears his own voice smoothly reply that yes he does need something. In fact he needs a whole lot. The guy's chibi self groans that it is auto mode again. Meanwhile in the actual conversation he pulls the eagle brooch out of his cloak and drops it on the counter. The guy pulls the eagle brooch out of his cloak and drops it on the counter. Christina's whole posture stiffens. She scans the tavern to make sure nobody saw, and then quickly ushers him into the back where nobody can eavesdrop. There she demands to know who he is. The young man tells her to relax and says he only came because he thought he could help. When she presses him he explains that he is quite confident in assassination work. Christina studies his face carefully and asks if he could possibly be the one who came from the west. Sejun answers that yes that is right and asks how she knows him. She tells him she has heard of a mercenary who will do anything for the right amount of money. Gold coins drift across her side of the exchange as she names his reputation. In that case she says there is no way a man with that kind of reputation would ever side with the secret society they are fighting. Fine then she says. Introductions are in order. She gives her name as Christina and asks for his. Our boy's mouth is finally his own again. Chat lights up wondering if he is finally about to choose a nickname. They tease him about whether Jin Sejin was seriously his streamer name this whole time. He realizes with a small shock that yes his streamer handle really is just his real name because he never bothered to pick anything else when he signed up. Using his real name is the safest option and there is no telling how long he will keep streaming anyway. But his in-game nickname is a different question. He thinks about it for a moment and then he speaks the answer. His name he says is Nameless or Mumyung in the old tongue. Chat almost explodes. Viewers scream in disbelief and howl that no matter how lazy he was about picking a name, calling himself Nameless is genuinely hilarious. Sejong calmly explains that this might not seem funny now but naming yourself Mumyung was a huge trend back in his previous life. He drifts into a memory of the Murim youth generation walking around dead serious calling themselves Nameless the First and Nameless the Second. The system asks if he wants to confirm Nameless as his name and he presses yes. A new prompt lights up telling him that from now on he can accept assassination requests at the Sun Tavern. Christina nods and welcomes him aboard with his new name. She asks how she should contact him when the time comes but Nameless holds up a hand. Before that he needs to know where the owner of this brooch is. Christina's expression softens for the first time in the whole conversation. She tells him she buried him at the western docks. She hands him a small dark stone and tells him to use this to contact her from now on. A window pops up confirming that he has obtained a signal stone. Then she says she looks forward to working with him. Nameless echoes his new name back to her and steps outside. The tavern door swings shut behind him under a sky painted red and orange. His chibi self remarks that he has received the signal stone so it feels done for the day. Chat asks if his streamer nickname is going to be Nameless from now on and he tells them he has not decided on a broadcast name yet so they can just call him whatever they want. Viewers cheer that Nameless suits an assassin perfectly and that it is sorted. Then the young man wraps things up. He tells the chat he will be ending the stream here and will turn it back on at the same time tomorrow. Our boy fumbles the sign-off and coughs into his sleeve and awkwardly settles for a mumbled bye instead of the cheesy line he almost tried. Chat teases the noob relentlessly. Then Sejun genuinely asks out loud whether the game saves if he just logs out. Viewers howl at him to just click leave and ask how else he would do it. They say this newbie is hilarious right up to the end. A counter starts ticking down from 5 as the world dissolves. Back in the real world, night has settled over the city and our boy is stretched out on his floor as the connection closes. The stream has ended with 6 viewers total. He notes with some surprise that all 6 people who joined actually stuck around and watched until the very end. Their usernames were pretty peculiar though, he mutters. Then something odd happens. A new user handle called Debt to the Future pops into the chat and asks if this is the Warrior Play stream. Then another user joins and then another one after that. Seojin stares in genuine confusion. The young man does not remember any of these people being there during the broadcast. Messages pile in demanding to know why the stream ended. They say they just got here and that they wanted to see the warrior play. The guy sits up in his broken shirt and asks nobody in particular how in the world people are still joining a stream that already ended. Late that night back in the apartment they share, Taewoo is stretched out on the couch scrolling through his phone while our boy sits behind him staring at his own screen. Taewoo mumbles that today's stream turnout was honestly not too bad. He asks what he should do for content tomorrow. Then Sejun suddenly reaches out and pokes his side and the young man nearly jumps out of his skin. He snaps at Sejun for scaring him half to death. Taewoo teases that he must have eaten his manners along with his dinner. Sejun brushes it off and asks the real question that has been bothering him. Why is the chat on his stream still going even after the broadcast ended? Every time he glances at his phone, more messages have piled up on top of each other. Taewoo tells him that yes, this is actually happening and shows him exactly why. He pulls up a link on his phone and asks if that is him. The video title reads that it is footage of a total newbie clearing mobs with parries while going 13 versus 1 in the tutorial. The guy stares at it for a long moment. Taewoo asks out loud what kind of person gets a world first clear on their debut day and even makes their viewers do the marketing for them. Marketing? Sejun echoes half in disbelief. Taewoo grins and says that if this is not marketing then nothing is. Taewoo scrolls the comment section and spots a familiar handle sitting right at the top. I am the Yozan assassin. That is that viewer from before, the one who spammed the chat non-stop and clocked his skill early. At this rate our boy realizes the post is going to hit 30 recommendations any minute now. Taewoo leans in with a bright grin and explains the mechanic. Once a post hits 30 recommendations it gets bumped to the community front page and the follower count on the linked channel goes vertical from there. Sejun's tired chibi self silently notes that his roommate should really go to sleep now since he was streaming all night yesterday. Taewoo bids him goodnight with a lazy thumbs up. Now that Sejun thinks to himself is a real pro. Our boy crawls off to bed with his phone still in hand and checks his own community page one more time. The recommendation count has already climbed higher just in the time it took him to walk down the hall. So this is why they call it marketing, he says quietly. He decides to check on it again in the morning, and finally puts the phone down. Sunlight breaks over the city buildings the next day and the community has already exploded overnight. Just as Taewoo predicted, the recommendation count on Joem's post has cleanly cleared 30 and split into a full-blown war. The front page is now covered in dueling titles. Why Lord Nameless's video is fake. Why Lord Nameless's video is legendary. Why are people assigning so much meaning to solo carry gameplay anyway? Every thread is buried in fights and screenshots and armchair analyses. The young man scrolls through it with a tired little frown when a new post catches his eye. A reposted piece with a headline claiming that the new Stage 10 training AI is insanely annoying. He clicks in because he is curious. The post is a detailed breakdown of the mystery opponent who dethroned Shin Haeun's legendary AI. The author reminds everyone that the old Stage 10 AI built on Shin Haeun's data would politely wait for you to pick up your sword if you dropped it. But this new unknown AI, the author warns, does no such thing. This one attacks the moment the user shows any opening at all. If you cry out that you surrender, the AI just tilts its head and mocks you back, asking if you got scared. It openly looks down on the person in front of it. Sometimes it even turns its head away mid-block and dares the user to land a hit while it deliberately looks the other way. Sejun's face slowly falls as he reads. The article is describing the exact behavior he and Taewoo were laughing about during their goofing around sessions from days earlier. He mutters defensively that it only ended up that way because he was chatting with Taewoo while playing. Updating the AI's data through endless repeat matches was mind-numbingly boring, and he honestly did not want to do it that many times. This whole thing feels a little unfair, he thinks. Commenter after commenter is calling the mystery AI a genuinely toxic bastard. Then his eyes lock onto a single new reply and everything goes quiet. Someone is asking in plain text whether this unknown AI could possibly be Lord Nameless. His chibi self blinks at the screen, wondering how anyone already noticed. It is genuinely a little scary at this point, he mumbles. Then he checks the handle on the theory. Of course it is Joem again. Does that man have some kind of divine intuition, the guy wonders. The replies underneath are already piling on Joem. Two other users are telling him to stop mentioning that nobody streamer and to stop crossing the line and dragging some random tiny channel into an unrelated conversation. For now at least the crowd is beating the theory back down. But getting too much of it too suddenly is never a good thing either, and he reminds himself that this is something he knows firsthand from his past life. Unprepared power is a poison in disguise. All he needs to do is keep going day by day and advance at his own steady pace. Then he climbs into the capsule and lets the connection light up around him. His stream homepage tells the whole story. Just as Taewoo said, his follower count has ballooned to 432, but out of those only 6 viewers actually watched the live broadcast yesterday. Our boy grins to himself in his broken kite band tee and wonders how many people will come today. His finger hovers over the start stream button and taps it. The screen announces that Jin Sejun has started the broadcast. The game world loads in with a sweeping shot. Dawn of the Assassination Squad and shadows in the city. The opening walks the audience through the setting one more time. The stage is the city of Altion, and it is a place that blends the beauty of old European stonework with the bustle of a modern metropolis. The city is divided into 4 districts. The Royal District sits at the center. The Aetherius Spire is where the Magic Tower stands. The Gilded Quarter belongs to the wealthy nobles, and the Low Quarter is where the commoners live. Players can receive assassination missions from anywhere they want, but in reality nothing stops a player from wandering the streets and killing anyone they please without any mission at all. Sejun loads into the city as Nameless, wrapped in a dark green cloak with his hood down. He greets his viewers with a casual hello. The chat instantly floods in. People are yelling that they finally got in and that they have been waiting the whole time. They say this is the legendary Nameless stream everyone has been arguing about all morning. Someone types out in disbelief that oh wow, it is not actually Joam's stream. Another asks if this really is the famous Nameless. The young man laughs and confirms for the record that no, this is not Joam's stream. Just to head off the drama early, he also adds that he did not bribe Joam either. Chat cheers that he is already cutting off the controversy right away. Then a fanfare rings out. A user handle called What Do I Actually Do has donated 10,000 won and left a message. They watched his video and tried to challenge Ettore but cannot beat him no matter what they do. They have been holding their breath waiting for this stream to ask for help. Nameless blinks at the notification and murmurs that oh, this is his very first donation. Our boy answers on reflex. He thanks What Do I Actually Do for the donation and tells them that for Ettore they just need to hit one spot. His chibi self holds up a painter's palette and cheerfully adds that it is too easy, right? The chat immediately spams the dislike button. One user types back asking if that is what the box says, Professor. Another sarcastically claps out each letter, spelling that it was really helpful. A third viewer speaks up as someone who watched yesterday and warns everyone in the room not to ask this guy anything ever. A fourth simply writes that What Do I Actually Do just threw 10,000 won directly into the trash. Nameless stares at the pile-on and realizes he might have handled his first donation a little too casually. He clears his throat and adjusts his tone and tries again with a proper tip. One helpful viewer condenses the whole lesson into a neat summary post explaining how to catch Ettore. Hit one spot and make him lower his guard. Aim for his vitals and dodge attacks nimbly. A user handle called Finally has donated 1,001 with a message that reads only that they can breathe now. Our boy stares at it completely lost and offers a cautious congratulations before letting it go. Our boy wonders out loud how many people are actually watching him. A viewer counter blooms across his display and answers cleanly. Currently 327 viewers are tuned in. A bead of sweat appears at his temple as he stares at that number. 327 people watching him right now. There are way more than he expected. He honestly thought at most 100 would show up. Then he collects himself and asks the audience what they should do today. Chat immediately splits into a shouting match. Half are demanding warrior play verification right now, and the other half are asking what there even is to verify. The guy's chibi self grins brightly and remarks that the youngsters play so well together. He tells them gently not to fight, please. Then a familiar handle from the tutorial stream drops a long, careful explanation for him. Medium Spicy Human tells him that he can just look around. If he wants gold, he can take commissions from the assassination squad, or he can pickpocket a bit, or he can simply sightsee through the city. That is what an open world is for. Other viewers cheer at the taste of an open world. Nameless takes a moment to think it through as the opinions keep piling up. There really are a lot of different takes here, he mutters. Then a slow grin slides across his face. He looks up at the market street stretched out in front of him. It is filled with slow-moving NPCs. Women with parasols and merchants with baskets and shoppers weaving through stalls are everywhere. Well then, he says, for now they should try a little pickpocketing to warm up. Our boy drifts through the crowded District 4 market, brushing shoulders with NPC after NPC. Each brush comes with a small secret slip of his hand into somebody else's coat. He mentions to the chat that he tried adapting the principles of an old grappling technique from his past life, and it turns out to be surprisingly easy on virtual pockets. 3 wallets vanish into his cloak in the span of a minute and 7,000 gold pings into his purse. A little tag confirms 3 consecutive pickpocketing successes. Chat is losing their minds. Outside, Beedishell asks whether this is a thief stream instead of a warrior play. Somebody else notes that Nameless starts by claiming he is from the Murim and then runs a full pickpocket route. Seedish Thief drops a lore tip that pickpocketing is honestly only fun when the guards are actively chasing you. The young man studies his glowing pile of loot and figures with this much money he probably will not stress himself to death anytime soon. Wannabe Lord jokes that with that amount he could buy a whole luxury penthouse, and then two rough-looking men slide out of a side alley and call out to him. He turns his head half amused. The first one confirms yeah, it is him they are talking to. They say it looks like he has been doing something pretty interesting around here and that he must know he needs their permission to do business in this market. Nameless catches the word and echoes it back at them with a small dry note in his voice. He fishes one of the stolen wallets out of his cloak and holds it up between two fingers. He asks if they are talking about this. Yeah, that one, the thug growls, already stepping closer. Since our boy earned plenty, they should share some of it. Nameless pauses and turns to the chat instead. He asks what kind of game has him getting extorted by street thugs instead of arrested by the city guards while he was pickpocketing. Chat celebrates. They cheer that the freedom in this world is insanely high. Someone tells him to just beat them up already. Someone else tells him to go for a warrior play. Another asks if they are finally going to see it. A big yellow wanted poster flashes across his display stamped with the mask emblem of the disassemblers. Sojin asks casually whether it is even possible to clear these guys out too. Wannabe Lord confirms that yeah, it is totally possible. Riemann Watermaster explains that he just has to defeat the gang boss. Avataro Sleep Press spells it out and says if he beats their boss the entire market gets cleaned up. The guy smirks. Then he says today's stream goal is cleaning up these market streets. Meanwhile, on the far side of the city, and inside an entirely different broadcast, a grand mansion looms against a gray sky. Somebody inside is bellowing that the intruder could not have gone far and ordering his men to find him now. Down in the polished halls of the mansion, a heavy bald guard in a dissembler tabard is striding forward with his sword drawn. The silhouette of someone hunched behind a pillar is just barely out of his line of sight. This is Alpaca. He is a veteran streamer averaging 10,000 live viewers on a slow day, and he is famous for organizing lore videos and beginner guides for every Assassin Guild's Dawn title. Right now he is in the middle of an unarmed assassination challenge run against Drake, the boss of the dissemblers, and it is not going well. He mutters that he thinks he is about to get caught again and that there is really no opening. The bald guard suddenly snaps his head up and locks eyes right on him. The guard snarls that so this is where the rat was hiding. Alpaca barely gets out a curse before a dagger buries itself in his forehead, and the game over screen flashes across his vision. He respawns in a quiet cobblestone street with his hands on his hips and lets out a long defeated breath. He mumbles to himself that he does not even know how many times these gang members have killed him at this point. Absolute failure helpfully counts for him and says it is the 4th time now. Alpaca winces under his breath. He says that if he could just take down Drake, the whole 4th district would be cleared, but it just is not easy. Resignation from today asks if this is even possible to beat. Outside, Bedishell tells him he probably will not ever clear it. Fire of Good Moms declares flatly that the rulers are basically unbeatable. Then the story pauses to explain who the rulers even are. The rulers are the syndicate team that runs Altion's 4 districts, and they are the main villains of the whole game. There are 4 of them with one running each district. The queen is seated over the royal district. The master of the Aetherius Spire rules from the top of the magic tower. The head of the royalist faction moves nobles across the gilded quarter. And finally, the boss of the disassemblers grips the low quarter in his fist. That boss is also known as Drake. Unlike the other 3 rulers, Drake is notorious for being nearly impossible to find because he randomly spawns in one of 10 hidden bases scattered across District 4. Alpaca opens up a trade window with a shady dealer and buys the disassembler's secret map. He exchanges a stack of gold coins for a rolled scroll. Alpaca stretches and says out loud that he should check Drake's location real quick. The scroll lights up and marks a single spot on his map called the Troop. He says the name and shakes his head. Drake is hiding in another place that is tough to look for. Then a fanfare cuts across his stream. Crazy Mutt has donated 10,000 won and left a message telling him that if it is too much for him, he should just do a warrior play. Alpaca frowns and says he saw someone doing an unarmed warrior play somewhere. He thanks Crazy Mutt for the donation, but honestly he asks what does he even mean by warrior play. Warrior play is impossible in this game. Crazy Mutt hits back that he is completely serious. Oven Up College student asks if Alpaca has not checked the community lately. Alpaca blinks. He asks if someone on the community is actually doing it. Chat flashes bright yellow with the words warrior play clear. Alpaca throws his arms across his chest and strikes a dramatic pose. He says that if that person actually succeeds at a warrior play, then he will serve them as his master and do a till the end stream until he gets a warrior play clear on Drake himself. Given up college student immediately donates 10,000 won and asks whether Alpaca can really take responsibility for that statement. Alpaca's chibi self shuts his eyes and grins bright. Of course he chirps. He will absolutely take full responsibility because it is completely impossible. Chat instantly floods with mocking laughter. Alpaca's face falls a little and he mumbles that they should not tell him it is actually true. He starts backpedaling in a hurry. He adds that of course if the person who cleared it turns out to be a pro, then he will not do the till the end stream. Lord of the Abyss instantly calls him out for being scared. You can bird types that this is so pathetic. White Vengeance boos him and calls him a loser. Alpaca's chibi self coughs into his fist. Then another fanfare rings out. Crazy Mutt has donated another 10,000 won. Chat announces to nobody in particular that Alpaca is done for, because on another stream entirely at that exact moment our boy is already deep inside a mansion of his own. The disassembler gang is stampeding through the corridors, screaming that there is an intruder headed to the lower floor. They order everyone to block him at every depth. Bodies are already piling up in the halls behind him. Broken chandeliers rain paper and dust across the polished floor, and then the smoke clears just enough for a familiar figure to walk into view. Dark green cloak flaring behind him, and a heavy weapon loose in his gloved hand, and a slow half-smile pulling at the corner of his mouth. Fallen gang members lie scattered around his boots. Somewhere on Alpaca's stream a single viewer named Crazy Mutt watches his own tip come true in real time. He types out the words that will send Alpaca's whole night straight down the drain. It looks like Nameless is going to clear it soon. Rewind 30 minutes before Alpaca's till the end stream declaration ever airs and our boy is walking calmly down a shadowy alley in District 4. He is following the two dissembler thugs deeper between crumbling brick walls. The stink of stagnant water and something moldy rolls up off the cobblestones. Wannabe Lord asks the chat where these guys are even taking Nameless. Momenta Stettin remarks that the alley's atmosphere is genuinely insane. The young man waves it off and says lightly that they should follow them for now. Chat immediately starts panicking on his behalf. Avatar Sleep Press writes that Nameless does not even have a weapon, so how is he going to fight them? Medium Spicy Human adds that he does not have any Assassin Guild reputation either, so he will not be able to buy Drake's location anytime soon. Rent Bomb explains that to find the Syndicate's hidden targets you first have to clear all the related side quests. Nameless tilts his head and asks whether this syndicate is really that hard to catch. Then he blinks and hits Chat with a wide-eyed question asking what the rulers even are. Chat instantly loses it. Someone types that this reminds them of the immortal "what is a Perry" moment from earlier. Public Restroom Brick Thief asks if this can possibly be for real. A donation fanfare cuts through the laughter. Wait, what has donated 1,000 won and asks whether Nameless is really going to hunt the rulers without even knowing who they are. The guy holds up a finger and says he is asking what they are. That is the whole point and please explain it to him. One viewer types asking what do you expect from someone who did not even know what a Perry was. Behind the innocent face his thoughts are running quietly along a very different track. He actually looked up the walkthrough for Drake last night. But all the methods he found leave the informant with lingering consequences afterward, which makes them tricky to actually pick. A tiny chibi Nameless taps his lip with an exclamation mark bulb over his head, mulling it over. Not admitting he already knows would probably be easier for Drake, but it feels like he is still missing something obvious. Then the chibi's eyes light up. Very simple. Right on cue one of the two thugs strolls up close and calls out to him. The thug tells him to hand over everything he has on him while they are still asking nicely. Chat celebrates that they expected exactly this to happen, so they are not even surprised. Public Restroom Brick Thief writes that this is a piece of cake. The second thug adds that yeah, he should hand over the wallet he stole earlier too. Nameless just stares at them deadpan. Two more dissembler members close in from behind. One has sharp red spiky hair and the other has orange messy hair. Both are grinning wide and mean. Red hair leans in and tells the newcomer to go easy on the poor kid. Orange hair grins wider and says that if he just hands over the money maybe they will not eat him. Our boy ignores every word and asks calmly whether they know where Drake is. Orange hair snorts and says of course they do because Drake is their boss. Sejun follows up smoothly and asks then where exactly is he? Orange hair's face twists and he asks if they are crazy because why on earth would they tell him that? Nameless nods with a small smile pulling at the corner of his mouth. Is that so? He murmurs. Chat catches on immediately and starts howling that all right then they should get him beat up first. The young man says softly that fists are the best form of conversation. The other thugs glance at each other confused until a voice further down the alley cracks the moment wide open. It tells them to go teach him a lesson. The alley erupts. 4 dissembler members swarm in from every angle with daggers already drawn, and our boy finally begins to move. He drops low under the first dagger thrust and catches the man's wrist mid-strike. He slams him to the ground in the same motion. The dagger pops free of the man's fingers as he goes down, and Nameless plucks it out of the air one-handed. Chat gasps as it happens. They ask how he caught that and say his reaction speed is insane. Now armed, he sweeps into the rest of them. He parries a slash coming from his left with a sharp metallic clang and then drives the stolen dagger clean through the attacker's throat. He pivots off his back foot and catches a third blade against the flat of his own and cracks the pommel into the man's temple hard enough to drop him where he stands. The fourth swings a wide panic chop. The guy slips inside the arc and buries the dagger into his ribs. The man crumples with a strangled grunt. The alley goes quiet except for the last thug's ragged breathing. That last man is the one who admitted knowing where the boss lives. Nameless approaches him slowly. The thug on the ground stammers that this cannot be happening. Seojun asks him again flatly where Drake is. The thug snarls that he would never tell him that. Our boy parries the thug's desperate stab. The metal rings out and the thug drops back down into a groggy heap. He stands over him and asks it again. He wants to know where Drake is. The thug is stunned so badly he can only bubble out incoherent syllables. The young man brings the dagger down to hover over the trembling man's forehead and tells him to answer. The thug finally breaks. He gasps that it is 13th Street and the biggest troop there. Nameless studies the dagger in his hand and mutters that by the way this thing is way too short to actually be useful. He glances around the alley for something better and spots a length of rusted pipe leaning against the wall. Now that looks good. Pipe balanced across his shoulder, he sets off toward the theater district with a small satisfied smile. 13th Street is only a few blocks over and the White Lotus Theater rises above the crowd. He walks straight up to the front doors. A doorman starts to say sorry, but the performance is over. Nameless casually swings the pipe through the glass panels. The doors shatter inward. Gang members inside grab their weapons and pour toward him from every entrance at once. The guy plants his feet at the base of the wide marble staircase near the entrance. The first swordsman charges in wide and reckless. He parries the man's swing with a clean metallic ring and cracks the pipe across his jaw hard enough to launch him backward down the polished floor. The elbow-struck one crumples where he stands and Nameless reverses the pipe and drives the tip up under the parried man's chin. The staircase quickly becomes a wall of piling bodies. The floor around his boots is scattered with fallen gang members and broken weapons. The marble is slick with red where the swords used to be raised. Our boy pauses to catch his breath and looks around at the wreckage. He says the developers are seriously relentless for stuffing 30 people into a theater this small and telling him to do a stealth assassination. Then a rough voice roars out from the theater stage. Not bad, it calls. Drake, the boss of the dissemblers, is already waiting for him at the very center of the stage with a throwing knife balanced in each hand. Small thin blades whistle through the air toward Nameless in a dense volley. Then another volley comes and then another, until the rain of steel is coming in from both of Drake's hands at the same time. Seijun simply lifts the pipe and starts knocking every knife out of the air one by one. Every deflection rings against the metal, and every deflection carries him one step closer to the stage. Drake's twin chain daggers whip in from angles no normal opponent should be able to cover, but Nameless answers every single one of them. His pipe cracks against blade after blade and the sparks light up the theater. The chat scrolls fast. Someone marvels that he is parrying instead of dodging again, and another viewer types that his reaction speed is top tier. Then the barrage stops. Drake stands at the edge of the stage with a smirk carved across his bearded face and he mutters that it was not bad. His fingers uncurl to show 4 thin throwing knives fanned between them and he asks with cruel amusement whether Nameless can parry this too. The knives launch and the sky above the theater fills with them. Curved purple blades rain down from every angle at once and Nameless mutters to himself that there are just too many of them. His body reads the flight paths in the same breath and the pipe rises to meet the storm. Steel meets steel over and over. Blades ping off in every direction as the young man stands his ground and cuts a clean bubble of safety around himself. The chat can barely keep up. Someone types crazy in all caps. Another viewer named Outsider Beckshell notes with disbelief that he even parries the flying ones cleanly. A third asks what he cannot parry and someone answers instantly that the only thing he cannot parry is the viewers themselves. The rest of the chat agrees that this is facts. Down on the stage, Drake finally lowers his guard a fraction, and something close to respect crosses his face. He asks the young man what his name is. Nameless answers plainly with that single word. Drake nods to himself and says it is a good name. His eyes narrow with a kind of dark satisfaction as he adds that the strong deserve to be respected. Then his tone hardens. Therefore he tells Nameless he will go all out. Chains lash out from behind him twisting in the air and he charges into a full assault. The guy deflects the twin daggers with the pipe and ducks the first chain whipping at his ribs and slips sideways as the second buries itself in the wooden boards where his foot used to be. The chains hunt him from behind while the daggers press him from the front. Drake keeps the pressure absolutely relentless, with no opening and no breath and no window to counter. Nameless retreats step by careful step and the chat starts wondering out loud whether this is finally the wall. Someone says that when Drake was only throwing daggers they thought he was easier than Ettore. Another viewer realizes out loud that this second weapon must be why every other streamer has failed here. Then Sad Pig chimes in that maybe the devs actually wanted to encourage warrior-style plays. Raymond Watermaster adds that combat has always been an important element in the dawn of the Assassination Squad series. Drake pauses in the middle of the stage breathing hard through his grin. He taunts Nameless that he is not even coming forward. Our boy's eyes sharpen. His grip on the pipe tightens as he answers that then he will go first. He explodes off the floor in a full charge. The chains rip through the air to catch him and Drake's twin daggers scythe down from above. The chat panics. Rentbomb complains that he is just blocking all day. Why do this lol asks how anyone is supposed to beat that combo and calls it impossible. Feed Me adds that using a pipe was arrogant to begin with, but deep in Seonjum's mind a different calculation is running. This fight is definitely harder than the 13 enemies who ambushed him yesterday. But that only reminds him of who he is. He survived the Mountain of Blades and the Forest of Swords in his previous life. He knows the path through this kind of storm. He is going to break through and close the distance no matter what. Drake snarls that this brat really thinks he will give up an opening so easily. Their weapons crash together in a burst of white fire that shakes the whole stage. As the impact ripples outward, Nameless works through the truth in his head. Parrying can instantly stun regular mobs into a killable state, but against a boss like Drake it only buys enough time for a single attack. The chains normally cover for Drake and make it nearly impossible to land a proper hit, but that limitation does not apply to him, because he only needs to hit Drake properly once. The stance rises out of him from tens of thousands of repetitions in another life. Blade after blade coming down on him and being answered by the same fundamental motion. He plants his feet and transfers the power from his solid lower body upward through his hips and his shoulders. It flows into his arms. His pipe rises above his head in the high guard stance. This is the fundamental strike that every real martial artist learns first. Then the pipe comes down toward the head. The strike lands square on Drake's skull and the impact caves in his guard with a bone-shattering boom that rolls through the theater. The chat explodes. Crazy Mutt types 6 question marks and asks what he just did. Sad Pig gasps that Drake's head just got smashed. Stormheart marvels that he makes it look so easy. Patient on a White Horse drops the verdict and says that if someone makes something look this easy there is a high chance they are an absolute pro. Deep down Nameless is running his own analysis. Since this is virtual reality and his body is different, he was not entirely sure this would translate. But that does not matter at all. Blue wireframe overlays trace over his phantom form showing footwork and the twist of the upper body, and even the trajectory of his arms. Every single moment gets perfectly adjusted to the optimal posture on the fly. The body simply does not matter. Skill lives above it. Drake howls in fury as he realizes what just happened. He screams that the young swordsman is a bastard, and orders him to die. The chains slash in with everything he has left. Drake lunges into one final desperate charge with teeth bared. The young man raises the pipe overhead with both hands and drops it in a single clean vertical slash. Drake gasps out one strangled cry as the strike splits down through his body. Blood erupts in a wide red arc across the stage and he crashes to the floor and does not get back up. The system window blooms across the theater with the word clear glowing in the center. It announces that the boss of the disassemblers Drake has died. Below it a second line tells him he has obtained fragment of order 1 out of 4, and the chat completely loses its mind. Someone types that Nameless is a god 4 times in a single line. Another viewer screams to their mom that they witnessed a first clear again. Then a huge donation lands with a heavy chime. I Am the Joseon Assassin has donated 100,000 won with a message calling this the hope of warrior play. Our boy blinks and thanks Mr. Joseon Assassin for the 100,000 won donation with a slight bow. Then his eyes drift to the viewer counter tucked in the corner of his display and the number reads 447. He freezes. His mouth parts as he wonders out loud when the viewer count increased this much. For the first time all fight our boy looks completely off balance. He murmurs to himself that this is somehow even higher than his current follower count. His face fights to stay neutral and completely fails. A tiny smile creeps in. Kim Tae-woo told him not to obsess over the numbers and he reminds himself of that sternly. But there is just no way to stop the warm little glow spreading through his chest every time he peeks at the count again. He clears his throat and asks mostly to distract himself whether that fight was also a first clear. The chat lights up. Stormheart marvels that this streamer verifies his skills in some kind of insane way. Crazy Mutt jokes that he is basically playing a completely different game by himself. Then the donations start rolling. A viewer called Spoon Murderer chucks 10,000 won at the screen with a message saying they find it even creepier that Nameless stubbornly killed a boss with a plain pipe. Patient on a White Horse follows up by dubbing him the Pipe Murderer. Rent Bomber wonders out loud what he would have done without the damage increase buff. Why do this lol shoots back that of course he still would have caught Drake somehow, which is somehow even creepier. Our boy dips his head in a small chibi bow and thanks Mr. Spoon Murderer for the 10,000 won donation. Then a real question hits him. He glances at the bodies littering the street outside the theater and asks the chat whether the guards are actually coming. Beef Pal explains that guards in this world never show up during a mission. Deadsome Birchi corrects them cheerfully by noting the one big exception. Guards will absolutely show up the moment someone pickpockets a random NPC on the road. Nameless nods to himself and decides it is time to head out. At the theater entrance a figure in a dark hood is waiting for him beneath the sunset sky. He tenses on reflex but the long blonde waves spilling out from under the hood give it away immediately. Christina lowers the hood and tells him she sees that he took care of Drake. The chat immediately gets loud again. Someone called Best BF Experience begs Christina to just let them lend her some money already. Lost My Mind can only manage the single word gorgeous. She ignores them and tells the young man that thanks to him the assassination squad has been freed from a little more of the oppression they live under. She thanks him softly and offers him a small pouch as his reward. A notification blooms across his vision telling him he has obtained money and that his reputation has risen. The chat rolls its eyes fondly. Some viewer notes that they got a reward even though they never actually accepted the quest first. Feed Me replies that yeah, the game hands out rewards regardless. Don't fearsome when other adds that money is basically pointless in this game anyway, because pipes are overflowing on the streets. A random comment jokes that Drake must be seriously dumbfounded right about now. Christina turns to leave and asks him where he is heading next. Nameless tilts his head and says that he does not really have to tell her that, does he? She huffs quietly and says fine, she supposes not, and tells him she will be going now. Her final words are gentle. She says they should meet again and walks off into the dying light. The guy stands alone on the ruined street for a long moment. Then with the same completely straight face he always uses he wonders out loud whether that whole disaster back there counts as a successful assassination. Free Food and Crime protests that they never once agreed to call this thing an assassination. Clockout Parrot demands to know if he even understands what the word means. A last viewer just accepts that this level of shameless nonsense is honestly part of his charm now. He decides that this is a perfect place to end today's stream. The chat panics. Best Defense is Winter Defense yells for him to wait. A wave of donation stickers rain down begging him to hang out a little longer, and one viewer cries about why it had to end so easily. Nameless just smiles and waves a small goodbye and tells them see you next time. His screen collapses into a shower of blue tiles and the game world dissolves around him. Then he is blinking up at the ceiling of his own bedroom with headgear tilted crooked. He climbs out of the capsule and immediately locks eyes with the very last person he expected to be there. Kim Tae-woo is sprawled across his bed with his phone held up in the air and his feet planted right on the pillow. Sejun snaps at him and asks what he is doing in someone else's room. His friend answers without moving even 1 inch that he is lying down. Then Tae-woo adds that he is taking a break from streaming today so he was watching the broadcast and honestly it was pretty fun. Our boy asks the more important question, which is why exactly he is watching it here. He also demands that the guy get his gross feet off the pillow. Tae-woo delivers the philosophy of a lifetime. His room is his room and Nameless's room is also his room and Nameless is being nitpicky as hell. A brief cartoon scuffle later with pillows swinging in every direction. The two of them settle back into an uneasy peace. Once things are safe again, Sejun asks how the broadcast actually landed. Tae-woo tosses him the phone and says that for only 440 viewers, the community firepower is honestly hot right now. The young man scrolls fast. A trending post asks where is Drake in giant letters and the top comment jokes that Drake is currently in a stunned state and cannot speak. A viewer named SmileDig_runt is dropping hype clips one after another. 54 comments deep. One post reads that from now on anyone who doubts Lord Nameless is their enemy, and it already has 102 likes. Another post frames the whole thing so that it reads they told him to verify his Itori first clear skills, so he first cleared Drake too. A third viewer asks in genuine confusion what a shard of order even is because they have literally never seen one before. It seems to Sojun that nobody in the community has any info on this item yet. He wonders whether it might actually turn out to be useless if it can only be obtained through a warrior play in the first place. Then he stops on a nastier thread. Someone has posted that people should stop talking about streamers and calls the fans stream bugs. He leans over toward Taewoo with a quiet it and his roommate delivers the sad truth. Normally when a streamer gets fans they also get haters. It was nice back when Nameless was just getting attention. Our boy asks Taewoo what he is supposed to do in a situation this. Taewoo shrugs and says that his viewer count is only over 400 but the number of eyes on this community sits above 10,000. In other words, he needs to become famous. Famous enough that most of those 10,000 people would recognize his name at least once. The guy sits with that for a beat and wonders quietly how he is supposed to pull that off. Then a post lower on the feed catches his eye. It reads, "Please gather around and stomp your hooves for Alpaca who is trembling because Snake got caught." Another mocks the guy for putting so much dramatic meaning into a warrior play run in the first place. Seojin spots the streamer's name in a video thumbnail with the title "Warrior Play Testing" splashed across it, and then he sees the real money quote in a post titled "The Deceased's Freaking Awesome Last Words." Alpaca has apparently promised his entire chat that if anyone actually clears Drake with a warrior play he will serve them as his master and receive their teachings. The young man's lips slowly curl upward. He asks the room in general whether Alpaca can take responsibility for that kind of statement. Taewoo mutters yeah he will handle it, and rolls to face the other way. Our boy asks, still with that small dangerous smile, whether Taewoo happens to know a streamer named Alpaca. Taewoo perks up and says young Alpaca, yeah they have actually done a few collabs before, and asks why. Sejun just tells him that he needs a favor. Meanwhile, on a wide green mountainside lobby, made entirely from custom fan gifts, Alpaca is crumpled next to a haystack chair with a giant game over splash still hanging over his head. The retro death counter blinks the number 13 at him in loud red pixels. He mutters go under his breath and his chat cackles. Someone says he sucks and should quit the game. Another begs him to just give up the bare hand challenge already. Alpaca groans that they are all wicked people. Deep inside he thinks he really should have just used the reputation he gathered from smaller assassinations to buy Drake's location cleanly. Then the alpaca mascot Dayback waddles up to comfort him. It is a fluffy little animal his fans gifted him as a permanent lobby resident. Alpaca lights up and announces to the entire chat that Dayback has come over to comfort him. Dayback promptly spits directly in his face. He howls and the chat completely loses it. They spam the poor guy for pretending to still be goofing around when he clearly is not. Some idiot has dropped 10,000 won on him, and the message that plays back is his own drunken vow. If someone actually clears Drake, then Alpaca will accept them as his master and receive their teachings and stream non-stop until he beats it the same way himself. His face freezes. Alpaca asks the chat carefully whether someone actually cleared it. A viewer named Imaginius drops a link with a note telling him to go check this out. Alpaca clicks it while grumbling that they had better not be trying to forge something just to trick him again. A video thumbnail loads with a title reading "First Clear Nameless Drake Warrior Play Clear" across the top. 125 comments already sit under it. His mouth hangs open. Alpaca whispers that this person actually killed him. Then more quietly he asks who in the world this person is. Alpaca tries to sound out the name. A message notification chimes at that exact moment and he flinches half out of his seat. He curses at whoever startled him and asks what it is now. Then the message opens and the sender introduces himself politely. The message begins with a greeting to Alpaca and a name. This is Jin Seojin, and he is someone who also plays Assassin Guild's Dawn Shadows in the city. High above the city, a glass tower catches the afternoon sun with the words "Movie Soft Korea" gleaming on its side. Inside the executive suite, Eve Paimo, the CEO himself, is enjoying the small perfect moment of a freshly poured cup of coffee. He lifts the cup toward his face and hums that it smells good. The piece lasts exactly one heartbeat. The office door slams open and an employee comes barreling in shouting "President" at the top of his lungs. Eve's face flashes to chibi anger instantly. He snaps at the guy and asks whether he knows how to knock. The employee bows fast and apologizes. Then he catches his breath and says something massive just happened. One of the rulers has been defeated and it was through a warrior play run. Eve sets the cup down carefully and asks which ruler. The employee answers that it is Drake. Eve's whole face slides from crisis mode into a small chibi shrug in the space of a single breath. He waves it off and says he got scared for nothing because it was about time somebody caught Drake anyway. But his employee is not letting this go. He worries out loud about what happens if people start getting curious about the Shard of Order. Eve cuts him off firmly and tells him enough because he is worrying about nothing. The subordinate tries again. He says that if all the Shards of Order end up gathered too early, it will completely wreck their current plans. Eve gives him a flat look and reminds him that he is the one who personally designed and placed the system inside the game to prevent exactly that from happening. A quiet info window floats up to summarize the situation. Shard of Order 1 of 4 is a hidden item. It can only be obtained by defeating a ruler of Altion through a specific route, which is a warrior play. The item is untrackable and unsellable. The truly important detail is this. The core ruler among the 4 is impossible to defeat without a very specific hidden skill. That skill has been intentionally engineered to take players an absurd amount of time to unlock. Elsewhere inside the employee's own bedroom, a very personal grind is in progress. He is red-eyed and slumped in his gaming chair, hammering away at the game to find the skill himself. A massive system window blooms across his screen telling him he has been playing for over 100 hours and asks him kindly to please take a rest. He snaps at the pop-up out loud and tells it to get lost because he needs to get that skill. Community threads scroll past in the background, showing countless players trying to figure out the unlock condition. Which means he consoles himself grimly that there really is no immediate danger of anyone else getting it anytime soon. And yet the worry does not go away. He drifts back into the office looking exhausted and starts arguing again. He tells Eve that anyone knows anything might still happen. Also, and here his voice rises, the person who pulled the Drake clear was a streamer who was live just a second ago. Eve narrows his eyes and tells him to be quiet and get back to work. The employee's face freezes. Wait a minute, he says slowly. How did Eve know the guy was broadcasting until a moment ago? That sounds a lot like the boss was watching a stream during working hours. Eve scrambles for an answer and stammers out something incoherent. Then his whole aura explodes across the office. He roars that he is seriously docking that brat's pay this month. A cutaway shows Eve fuming behind his desk with a note floating beside him promising that they will be settling this whole thing during the guy's performance review. Then in the last quiet beat of the office confrontation, his expression softens just enough for one honest thought to slip out. Eve murmurs to himself that no one will actually gather them all and that everything should be fine. Across town in the calm modern living room of a veteran streamer's house, a different kind of drama is starting. Lee Soo-han is Alpaca's manager and editor, and he has just heard the word collab. His eyebrows are already climbing. He asks what does he mean a collab? Alpaca is sprawled comfortably on the couch and tells him yeah, he mentioned this last time. Soo-han squints and asks whether last time meant today. Then he stares down at Alpaca and asks whether he is seriously going through with this. Alpaca's phone lights up on the coffee table showing the guest's profile. Soo-han studies the page and grumbles that there probably is not even any good material to use for newcomer discovery content on a streamer this fresh. Alpaca sighs and tells him he is misunderstanding one important thing. Soo-han asks what? Alpaca sits up and announces that this person is not just coming as a normal guest. He grabs an imaginary crown in chibi mode and jams it onto his own head. Alpaca yells that this is a master showcase stream and he is inviting this guy for his very first one. Soo-han is completely unmoved. Master his foot, he says flatly. The guy has only been streaming for a few days. Alpaca whines that Soo-han already saw the footage while editing the announcement video and asks whether he wants to see it again. Soo-han shrugs and responds that the streamer is probably just good at assassination games and honestly he only really cares about the league anyway. Alpaca clicks his tongue and mutters that seriously whatever. Then he pivots to the real reason he brought Soo-han over. He asks whether he can lend his brand new capsule to Sejun later. Soo-han's face drops. Soo-han wants to know what because Alpaca has a perfectly good spare capsule of his own. Alpaca explains that Sejun said his synchronization rate is really low and that Soo-han recently upgraded to the most expensive model on the market. Soo-han wants to know how a supposed master can possibly have a synchronization rate that low. That does not make any sense. Alpaca sighs heavily and mutters fine, he will just use his own capsule instead. Soo-han snorts and tells him he will be monitoring the reactions to the collab stream from the other room, so just call him when the guy actually shows up. Then he stalks off toward his own workspace. Then something clicks in Alpaca's head. He goes very still. If Sejun's synchronization rate really is that low, then that means the guy pulled off that warrior play run against Drake in a setup that was not even meant for him. How much better does he look in reality if he really is a master? A monstrous silhouette in a floral shirt swims into his head, snarling that if Alpaca does not go easy on him this round he is getting buried. Alpaca breaks into a cold sweat and whispers to himself that maybe the collab was a bad idea after all. Then the doorbell rings and he flinches half out of his seat. He opens the door with slightly trembling hands and every worry he had drains right out of his face in a single blink. Standing there is a clean-cut and handsome young man in a hoodie, giving him a small polite bow. Our boy, without missing a beat, tells him it is nice to meet him. Alpaca just gapes and gets out one strangled what. Then Sejun introduces himself properly by name. He is Jin Sejun. The stream chat instantly explodes. Viewers scream that he looks way more handsome than anyone was expecting, and someone else insists there is no way this is his real face. He must have made this through customization. Then Taewoo strolls up behind Sojin grinning and calls out that Hyung it has been a while and that he is here too. He waves them both inside. The two step past the threshold with a cheerful greeting. The young man takes in the layout with quiet interest. From the outside this really looked like a normal house, but once you step in it feels like the workspace and the living area have been cleanly separated into two different worlds. So this is what a veteran streamer's house looks like, he notes silently. Alpaca gestures them toward the couch and says he will go make some coffee, so just have a seat for a moment. Taewoo immediately volunteers to help. Then a new voice cuts in from across the room with a simple hello. Our boy looks up. A rougher-looking adult man with dark hair is walking over. He introduces himself calmly as Alpaca's manager and editor Lee Soo-han. Sojin stands and returns the introduction as streamer Jin Sojin. Their hands meet and the handshake tightens into something more than polite. Soo-han's inner voice narrates suspiciously, asking whether this kid is trying to establish dominance with this grip. A little counter blinks up showing an 85% pressure reading between their palms. Then Soo-han lets go and asks the real question. He saw Sojin's gameplay footage, but he heard the synchronization rate is on the low side. Soo-han presses further and says he was also told Sojin has not been playing games for very long. Our boy tilts his head and admits that, well, honestly, that part is a bit of a secret. Alpaca drifts past with the coffee tray, muttering in chibi mode about who invited these two clowns to gang up on him. Sejun takes a small breath and finally offers up part of the truth. He played the league for a bit about 7 years ago. Alpaca latches on to the 7 years part immediately with his mouth falling open. 7 years ago, he echoes. Soo-han latches onto the league part with a completely different fire in his eyes. His voice actually shakes a little as he asks whether Sejun was good back then too and what his tier was. The young man answers with the same calm as before. He tells them that his tier was silver. Soo-han shakes his head slowly and insists he does not buy that. There is absolutely no way someone suddenly becomes this good after taking a long break of 7 years. Sejun just shrugs slightly and admits that, well, that could actually be true. His answer is so completely unbothered that neither of them can push further. Soo-han lets it drop, but his competitive fire is not out yet. He tilts his head and asks Sejun whether he wants to take a quick spar in the training grounds right now. Then Taewoo walks in from the kitchen doorway, carrying a coffee tray. He catches the tail end of the request and asks Soo-han innocently why exactly he wants to take Sejun to the training ground. Soo-han says why else, because he wants to test the guy's skills. Taewoo cracks a grin so wide it almost splits his face. He asks with a laugh whether Soo-han really wants to spar with this guy of all people. Soo-han bristles and asks yeah, why. Taewoo drapes himself dramatically against the couch and sighs that he is really saying this for Soo-han's own good. Soo-han demands to know why Taewoo is suddenly treating him this fussy. Taewoo tells him plainly that he honestly would not recommend sparring with this guy. Soo-han's pride flares and he asks whether Taewoo thinks he will lose. Taewoo shakes his head slowly and says that it is not even about losing. It is because of something else entirely. Taewoo leans in and drops his voice to a whisper. He warns Soo-han that he absolutely cannot leak this to anyone else. Then he says the words. If Soo-han really wants to fight Sejun in the training grounds, he would honestly be better off just directly challenging stage 10. The whole room goes still. Alpaca and Soo-han both stop breathing at the same time. Their eyes widen in perfect twin chibi horror. Then it clicks. The identity of that mystery AI whose name is scrubbed out of the entire game is sitting right here in their living room. They whisper together, asking whether this guy is unknown. Sojun is sitting quietly on the couch and he just meets their stare with the same calm, closed-off face he always uses. The living room is dead quiet as a video plays across Alpaca's phone screen. The replay label glows at the top, and inside the video our boy is dancing through stage 10. A blur of silver blade and a step through the guard and a clean counter. Shin Hyeon's level 10 AI cannot lay a single hit on him. Alpaca and Lee Soo-han are frozen in perfect chibi shock beside the screen with their mouths hanging open. The same helpless syllables escape both of them at once. Amazing, they whisper. The video keeps going. Sojun deliberately takes exactly one hit on camera, and other than that clean concession, he does not get touched once. Suhan's face goes even paler. A tiny chibi Suhan bows his head and squeaks out that if he practices for another 80 years, maybe he might be able to beat him. Both watchers go glassy-eyed with tears welling up. Alpaca starts sculpting Suhan's chibi form with a tiny hammer, cackling that his coolness is insane. Then Taewoo turns to the real Suhan and tosses out a cocky grin. "See," he says, "that is Jin Sejun for you." The video ends. Suhan stares at the black screen for a long silent beat, then he lifts his head with a completely new expression on his face. The competitive fire from earlier has been fully extinguished and replaced with something almost solemn. He addresses Sejun formally. The young man blinks and answers yes. Suhan squares his shoulders and announces that from now on he will serve Sejun as his hyungnim. Alpaca's chibi eyes plead, but Suhan is already committed. He clears his throat and explains his personal philosophy. Anyone who is genuinely better than him at games automatically becomes a hyungnim. From now on, he continues firmly, he would like Sejun to please speak comfortably to him. Our boy scratches the back of his neck and tries to salvage the situation. He appreciates the respect, and he really does. But based on his actual age, he should honestly be treated as an elder, not a hyungnim. The room dissolves into laughter and chat overlays crash across the display. Alpaca just leans back grinning and points at Sejun, teasing that look at him spacing out. Then Alpaca goes quiet for a beat. His brain has just landed on something important from earlier. 7 years ago, he murmurs to himself. Could it be that Sejun is actually that user from back then? Then a hand smacks him lightly on the shoulder and someone asks what he is doing. He blinks up. Suhan is already pointing at the clock with a crisp tone. It is almost time for the broadcast and they need to get ready. Alpaca chibi jolts. Right, he mumbles, and look at the time already. His eyes go quiet and he tries to brush it off, telling himself no, he is overthinking it. Then Suhan turns to Sojun and asks politely whether they should head over. The guy nods and says all right. Alpaca opens his mouth to lead the way, saying they will start with his own capsule, but Suhan cuts him off completely. Right this way, Hyungnim. Suhan chirps and hustles Sojun toward his own private workspace with his brand new capsule inside. Alpaca stands there frozen mid-sentence with the offer dying on his lips. Then a chapter title splash washes across the screen and the text "Alpaca has started streaming" appears at the bottom of Sejun's viewpoint. The chat is already exploding. Message after message rains in at absurd speed. Greetings flood in from every direction. People are saying they have been waiting and that they were on standby with chicken. The viewer counter blinks past 10,000 before Alpaca has even loaded his character model. He appears in his signature grassy mountain lobby with the biggest chibi grin of the year, throwing both hands out to his audience with a bright greeting. His voice is warmed up to peak streamer hype the second he lands. Alpaca tells everyone that it is nice to meet them, and he asks whether they all know what today is without him having to say it. The chat is savage as ever. Someone tells him whatever, and to get lost, old man. Another types that of course they know. A third demands that he hurry up and move his face out of the way of the screen. Alpaca fake pouts and asks what, because this is his stream and is nobody actually here to see him. The chat unanimously answers nope and asks whether he has a problem with that. He deflates with a wounded sigh. Then he sniffs at the chat and asks in a small voice whether no one came here for him. He came here to see Alpaca though. A viewer named Best Defense is Winter Defense chimes back, and Alpaca instantly lights up. He points at the name and asks, "Oh, Best Defense, did you come to see him?" Then Best Defense follows up saying he came to watch the Till the End stream. Alpaca's tone flatlines instantly. The Till the End stream is not today, he tells him flatly, and adds, "You are banned," with a little heart emoji. A viewer named Pick of Sorrow asks why not today. Alpaca winks and answers that today is different, and here it comes, drum roll please. Chibi Alpaca throws his fists in the air. Wanted posters of the 4 rulers explode across the background behind him in a sunburst of fire and gold. "Warrior play is what they are doing today," he yells. A viewer named Keyboard Stuck drops the verdict in one line, saying this bro is so hyped. Alpaca keeps rolling. Now he yells and tells them to let him introduce the master who will be teaching him warrior play today. The chat immediately gets suspicious. Did he kidnap a master, they ask. What is with that dramatic entrance effect? A spotlight snaps down on center stage of the lobby, and the announcement blooms across it reading streamer Jin Sejun. Alpaca at the edge of the stage waves an arm and calls for him to please come out. Nothing happens on stage, and the spotlight sits stubbornly empty. The chat pounces instantly, asking what is going on and why he is not showing up. Watching Groom drops the killing blow with an accusation that this must be an imaginary collab. Alpaca breaks into a cold sweat and mutters that well, that concludes Alpaca's delusion. Someone in chat gently asks whether something happened. Alpaca Chibi holds up a defensive sign and the chat starts laughing. Alpaca panics for real now and shouts that it is not an imaginary collab. He insists that look, they even agreed to have an offline after party later. Then a chime cuts through the panic. A message notification blooms across his display from Jin Seijin. Alpaca blinks and murmurs, huh. He opens the whisper window and finds Jin Seijin already typing. The first line reads that this is Jin Seijin. Then the real message drops. Seijin writes that he does not really know how to enter Alpaca's lobby. Could Alpaca send him an invite, he writes. Alpaca's soul briefly leaves his body. The chat completely explodes. Patient spectator drops the killing line saying that typing out hey hey is so boomer. Someone asks if this is a concept or if it is real. Alpaca deadpans at the camera and says that is what he wants to ask too. Is this guy serious? A polite please stand by banner floats up across the stream while Alpaca sends over the invite. Then a stage light flares back to life at the spawn point, and our boy finally appears in the grassland lobby with one hand raised in a small polite wave. He says hello and that sorry he is late and introduces himself as streamer Jin Seijin. Alpaca cracks up in relief and tells him it happens. Then without missing a beat he adds that strictly speaking Seijin is still a beginner. The chat piles right on. A beginner, someone gasps. Not being able to join the lobby is a bit much, they say. It is kind of cute how badly he messes up the basics. Someone else observes that they are watching a guy try to learn from a beginner. Alpaca peeks at the corner of his display and grins. Just a bit more, he tells himself, and viewership will hit 10,000. His hand flies up to his face. The comments in every chat room are getting a bit spicy, he tells everyone. It honestly feels like roasting the streamer has become the main attraction. A little info box drifts up alongside the stream to explain that the chat window in each streaming room varies depending entirely on the streamer's personality. Some streamers rule with an iron fist and crush their viewers into silence. Others, and here Alpaca sprawls contentedly across his haystack, run a completely friendly broadcast. He admits with a grin that he actually likes this kind of free-for-all atmosphere the best. Then his brain catches up to reality. He glances over at Seijin sitting quietly beside him and his face falls. Alpaca defensively assures himself that he definitely will not get roasted for his own skills. Then he pivots hard into his actual segment. Now he announces with a sudden explosion of sparkles. As everyone knows, thanks to Seijin catching the Drake, he ended up having to do a till the end stream. Right on cue, a donation lands with perfect comic timing. Some idiot has donated a generous 10,000 won again, and the voice replay is that exact vow from days ago. If someone actually succeeds at warrior play, the message plays, then Alpaca will serve them as their master and learn from them and stream non-stop until he clears Drake himself. Chat responds with laughter everywhere. The guy sitting on the haystack chair covers his mouth with one hand and starts silently laughing. Alpacas pop up all around him and Alpaca cries out that hey, Seijin cannot be laughing right now. Our boy nods calmly and admits that yes, that is right. He also feels a bit responsible for Alpaca's situation. It was his fault, he says, for catching Drake without realizing that someone else would flex on the second day of launch by loudly declaring that an unarmed warrior play clear was impossible. The chat immediately loses their minds. Wait, one viewer yells, if he plays it that way, what is Alpaca supposed to do? Feed Me labels it precision high flex mode on. Black Liptic drops the translation saying my bad, but it is your fault. Alpaca just sits there in stunned silence while Rumid Lifecon quietly types that Alpaca played himself. Alpaca side-eyes Seijin with genuine surprise. Deep down his streamer instincts start reading the room. This guy is surprisingly bold, he thinks. Despite the massive amount of viewers pouring in, Seijin does not look nervous at all. Actually, he looks like he is enjoying himself. Alright, Alpaca sighs finally and admits yeah, it is his fault. He clasps his hands together in front of Chibi Seijun with big begging eyes and pleads for the professor to please save him. The young man answers evenly that he will do his best. Alpaca perks up with a chibi peace sign and tells the chat alright. The content he will be doing with Seijun today is split into two parts. First, they will enter the game together and learn directly from him. The play button interface loads up on their shared screen. The next segment, Alpaca adds with a wink, is still a secret until the day he finally clears the warrior play till the end stream himself. Before they enter, he adds one quick check. He asks Seijun what basic skills he actually leveled up. Our boy tilts his head and echoes the word skills blankly. Alpaca stares back at him in disbelief. Seijun then admits calmly that he did not really level up anything. Alpaca leans in and asks whether Seijun really has not been using any skills up until now. He asks about basic passive skills for attack and movement speed and damage buffs. The young man's face pinches in genuine mild confusion. He starts by saying that he has never used any of them before. Then the honest question slips out with the same calm as always. He asks whether he really has to use them. Alpaca's face flatlines to full chibi ugly panic mode as a text overlay announces that when Seijin gets flustered out comes an ugly face. He recovers just enough to ask Seijin why he has never used a single basic skill up until now. Our boy scratches the back of his neck and admits in the small honest voice he only uses when cornered that to be honest he does not use them. He does not really know about them. Then he hedges under his breath that if he says that out loud he will look a bit pathetic, right? So he goes with the cleaner version and says he just did not feel the need to. Alpaca drops into pure tearful laughter because somehow ever since Seijin showed up the whole situation seems to be quietly turning against him. He glances at the viewer counter and sees the number 25,000 blinking back at him. Alpaca mutters that well the viewer count keeps climbing so they should stick this out a bit longer. Anyway, he tells his audience the second thing he is doing with Seijin today is directly related to that skill. He clicks a video open across the shared display. It is a rare piece of community footage titled Dawn of the Assassination Squad First Discovery of Weak Point. Inside the clip someone slashes a specific spot on an enemy's rapier and the whole blade shatters into fragments. A system window blooms across the video afterward. Weakness detection skill acquisition quest. Unlock conditions are to destroy weapons 10 times using a weak point. Progress 2 of 10. The chat immediately fires back. Someone asks if they are really doing this. Another types no way. A third asks what that even is. Alpaca lights up with tiny hand-drawn sword doodles floating around him. He exclaims that everyone knows fantasy novels have a concept called a weak point. There is a specific vulnerable spot on any weapon that lets a fighter cut through it easily. If a player finds 10 of those spots and destroys the matching weapons, they unlock the weakness detection skill. Alpaca throws up a peace sign and admits that so far the entire community has found only 2 weak points. One is the rapier that broke by pure chance in the video everyone already saw. The other was discovered by an NPC during a side quest, and it is the weak point of a longsword. Jumpstream asks what kind of skill weakness detection actually is. Alpaca shrugs honestly and says he does not know. It is the last remaining locked skill in the entire game. Then his eyes flash. But the actual rule behind the weak points themselves, he tells the chat with sparks blooming around him, is something Sojin said he already knows about. He points dramatically at the young man who is sitting slightly turned away with the smallest look of oh no on his face. The chat immediately turns into a wall of question marks. Someone says please do not bluff too much. Alpaca Chibi leans in even harder and starts hyping the moment. Then he throws up both hands and tells everyone to calm down. So he announces with a grin that they should make a bet on whether they can actually find it during today's stream. A quick tutorial overlay slides across the screen to explain the tool. Travel has a channel point system where viewers accumulate points automatically by watching streams. Those points can be used to change chat effects or request songs or make small demands of the streamer. But the real reason viewers love these points, the overlay explains, is the channel point predictions. These are bets placed on how the stream will unfold. A big banner drops in announcing that a channel point prediction is starting. Alpaca hypes at the camera and tells everyone he has given them plenty of time, so they should take their time and place their bets. The 4 options bloom into view. First is that they will find 1 or 2 weak points by pure luck during today's stream. Second is that no, they will find up to 3 or 4. Third is that Nameless will fail just like everyone else. And the last option, printed in tiny letters, says that no, Nameless is an alien with a third eye that can see weak points and will find more than 4. Real life Expire says obviously he will not find anything. Freeze Aerospace says they are going with the safe bet. The guy frowns thoughtfully and asks what a safe bet and an underdog are. Alpaca explains kindly that a safe bet is the option with a higher chance of winning, but the payout is low. The underdog bet has a much lower chance, but if it hits, the payout is enormous. The full prediction screen fills the display. 55% on the safe bet, 39% on 3 or 4, 5% on Nameless failing outright, and a small lonely 1% on the alien with a third eye option. A quiet pause hangs in the air. Our boy turns to the camera. He tells them gently that if they bet on 4 or more, it is a 100 times payout. The chat immediately turns into a wall of question marks. Someone types holy confidence back at him. Seojin keeps going with the same warm voice telling them to trust him. Then a huge donation lands with a chime. Bamdio-san Assassin has donated a generous 10,000 won with a message saying he trusted Sojun and just bet every point he has saved for 3 years on the more than 4 option. The young man turns to the camera with the tiniest polite smile and tells him congratulations. He is going to win the 100% payout. The loading banner reads entering Dawn of the Assassination Squad. Cut to the polished streets of the northeastern end at night. Screams echo from beyond a mansion wall. Inside the moonlit garden, a young noble is standing over a ragged servant boy with a rapier in hand, cornering him beside a stone fountain. The kid is on his knees begging for the young master to please stop now. The noble laughs and swings his blade lazily, telling him fine and to try running away because then he will spare him. The kid tries. A cruel smirk spreads across the noble's face as he winds up to run the boy down for real. Then two shadows drop over the far wall. Alpaca lands lightly on the garden path with Seojun beside him. He gestures at the smirking noble and informs the audience that this is Louis Neville, son of Richard Neville, the ruler of the far northeast. He is also the exact guy from the demonstration video they just watched. The young man studies the target quietly and says they should verify his skill first. Seojun draws a plain sword from his inventory. It is a normal blade with a tag reading provider Alpaca, and nothing particularly special about its craftsmanship. Alpaca turns to the camera and preps the audience with commentary. Now he reminds everyone that even if you know where to strike to destroy a weapon, pulling it off during actual combat is not easy at all. Alpaca bows his head and adds that honestly he thinks just replicating the video itself is a whole level above learning to parry. Then he opens his mouth to add the disclaimer, but it is already over. Louis Neville lunges with his rapier in a smug thrust. Our boy steps sideways with almost lazy grace and cuts a single clean diagonal line across the exact spot from the community video. The blade splits apart with a sharp cracking snap. Louis's eyes go wide as his ruined rapier flies from his hand. A system window blooms across Seojun's display. Weakness Detection Skill Acquisition Quest, Progress 1 of 10. Alpaca leans on the pommel of Louis's ruined blade and, deflating a little, reminds Seojun that he knows this still has not been fully proven yet, right? The guy tilts his head and admits calmly that well yeah, that is true. Then he adds in the same quiet voice that it just became certain. Alpaca blinks in confusion and asks what did. Seojun meets his eyes across the ruined garden and answers plainly that the rule he already had in mind is correct. The chat rolls its eyes hard. Someone types sure whatever he says. Lord Myung types that those falling for this line better start watching out for pyramid schemes. Another tells everyone to calm down. Alpaca tries to defuse and pleads for everyone not to say mean things to Seojun. Right on cue, a warning banner slams across the display announcing that an intruder has appeared. Guards come pounding through the garden with shields raised and short swords drawn. Seojun's expression shifts into something almost serene. Well, he informs the camera that seeing is believing, so he will just show them right now. Text drifts across the display alongside his internal monologue, a weak point that can be destroyed. In his first life he was tremendously talented and reached the swordsman's greatest goal. But though his martial prowess was high, he was not a monk, so he never developed the ability to actually see such vulnerabilities the way certain enlightened elders could. But he could still do something similar. All he needs is the intent of the fighter and the intent of the creator. If he grasps both together, the answer will surface on its own. Our boy raises his blade high and closes his eyes. The chat panics again. Someone asks why he is closing his eyes. The guard charges with a shield up and a short sword low. Inside our boy's mind, countless faint lines are being drawn across the guard's weapon from every angle at once. It is a lattice of possibility built from the two examples he already knows. One by one, the lines that do not match the developer's hidden intent begin fading out. What remains is a single glowing thread across the flat of the enemy's blade. His arm comes down. The weapon shatters in a burst of yellow light and blade fragments spin into the moonlit air. Seojun lands quietly beside the stunned guard with his sword still humming with the residue of the perfect strike. Alpaca behind him is frozen mid-scream and manages one strangled word before finishing with insane. The chat completely loses its collective mind. Question marks pile up in the feed. Someone asks if that actually worked. Another types that this is cold. He found it, and with his eyes closed they ask, "What is this?" they say, and ask if he is really an alien. Someone asks in genuine disbelief what our boy is even seeing. Alpaca and the young man stand there in the wrecked garden together as Alpaca's chibi grin slowly widens with pure disbelief and relief. A single quiet huh escapes his lips. Then right as the moment settles, another donation chime drops through the stream. Wow, this is Drigged has donated a generous 1001 with a message that lands hard. The message asks whether they just checked this beforehand yesterday and says that rigging the whole thing is disgusting. Alpaca's chibi face slams straight into full panic mode. A setup, he yells at the chat, and absolutely not. Until just a moment ago he was seriously convinced that Seojun was just bluffing this whole time. Are they kidding him? The safe bettors are already flooding the feed with hashtags about rigged streams and apologies. Someone screams that this is a scam. Another viewer sobs that this was their college tuition and please spare them just this once. On the other side of the meltdown, the underdog bettors are laughing their heads off, saying everyone should have trusted Nameless from the start. The chat rolls with hashtags for rigged broadcast and condemn. Then the young man tilts his head because something is strange though. A viewer named Kemorlam types the exact realization first. He yells that the safe bettors are not actually the only ones in danger here, are they? The channel point prediction floats back up onto the display. The percentages are still glowing across the 4 options. 55% on the first option, 39 on the second, 5 on the third and 1 on the last. Sejun looks straight at the camera and asks his real question. Only 1% bet on him finding 4 or more weak points, so are all of them chatting right now. Part of that 1%. What he is actually asking is whether everyone flooding the chat with mockery is themselves about to lose everything. A viewer gasps and says he is absolutely right. Everyone slowly realizes together that yeah, they are basically all going down together. The guy hums a little musical note to himself and murmurs that it is fine as long as he is not the only one failing, because this is the Korean sentiment. Then quieter he adds, these guys. Alpaca stands behind him watching the whole exchange play out with a kind of awe slowly spreading across his face. The viewer counter blinks over 30,000. Alpaca keeps studying our boy from behind. He is teasing the viewers but leading the flow of the whole stream without ever becoming unlikable. Sejun is not just good at the game. Hey, Alpaca realizes the guy has got a great sense for streaming too. A small smile spreads across his face. He will not have to struggle to lead this collab all by himself. The young man raises one hand and tells everyone to calm down now. The chat immediately pivots. They beg Sejun to tell them how exactly he did it. Softer Livercheck says they are genuinely curious how he built up these skills. Sejun props a hand under his chin and hums thoughtfully. For starters, he offers that he is just an ordinary young man in his 20s. Alpaca's mouth falls open and then explodes in outrage. He shouts that no way, because Sejun is far from ordinary. A chat message drops in perfect timing saying that calling yourself ordinary with a face that good is a bold-faced lie. The young man stands quietly in a shaft of golden light and offers his introduction properly. His name is Jin Sejun. Alpaca raises one hand toward the camera and confirms that yes, the face they are seeing right now is exactly how he looks in reality. It is not customization at all. The chat completely detonates. Crazy Jelly types out laughter. Krenkapotito demands to know if the developers are not going to run a balance patch on this. Reaction Monster wails that having that skill and being handsome on top is honestly crossing the line into unfair territory. Then a chime lands. That person has donated a generous 10,000 won with a suggestive message. Alpaca's whole face freezes. His hand hovers over the ban button as he mutters slowly. The chat is already cackling and asking whether Alpaca is getting sliced. A second donation lands from that person, dropping 10,000 won more, with another teasing message and a fake little cough trying to sneak one past him. Alpaca turns to Sejun and asks in a small chibi voice whether he should just ban this one. Deep down, a low growl rolls out of him because he has a great communication tool at hand called a permanent ban. Sejun waves it off calmly and says it is fine. Alpaca swings an oversized book at the screen and grudgingly announces that he will let it slide just this once. He coughs and steers the stream back on track. He tells everyone it is time to get back to the game. Alpaca asks Sejun quietly how exactly he did it. The guy considers for a moment and then answers with the same calm as always. To be honest, he says he is not actually seeing the weak points at all. Sejun answers with a completely straight face. He just knows, because he is a genius. Alpaca's whole face falls apart in real time. He chokes out asking if that is the secret method. The chat completely loses it. Viewbot types out extended laughter. Chat Ghost calls it so obnoxious. Soundmaker points out that Alpaca's expression right now is downright hilarious. Then he explains for real. Well, he says he really just thought about what the developer would have done. Alpaca's eyes widen slowly. So Sejun is saying Alpaca asks in disbelief that he read the developer's intent after seeing only 2 examples. Sejun nods in confirmation. That is right, he says, and pulls up a replay clip. Parry, he explains, was originally a system designed for dealing with regular mobs. Weak point is much harder than that. Even if a player succeeds at destroying a weapon through a weak point, it only breaks the weapon itself without dealing any extra damage, because there are much easier ways to kill regular mobs. In short, he concludes that the weak point system is genuinely unnecessary against regular mobs. Then Sejun lands the answer. So there is only one answer left. The weak point system was designed specifically for boss battles. That makes sense, Alpaca admits, tapping his chin. The boss difficulty in this game is definitely absurd, with defense so impenetrable it is honestly a nightmare. And Drake in particular was the worst of all. Then before Alpaca can catch his breath, Sejun tells him that he is going to try hunting the rulers right away. The chat instantly loses its mind again. Question marks flood everywhere. The underdog bettors are suddenly sobbing. Alpaca begs for them to please find something safe first before jumping straight to the rulers. Then the young man says his name quietly. He asks Alpaca whether they should open one more channel point prediction, for whether or not Seijin himself can destroy the ruler's equipment today. The options load up cleanly this time with yes or no both at 0% while betting is open. Seijin turns to the camera with the smallest confident grin. Everyone knows right, just trust him and follow along. The game world shifts into a vast gray training ground that looks more of a battlefield than anything else. At the far end of it, a 2-meter-tall man in full plate armor is meditating with an enormous greatsword resting across his knees. He rises slowly as they approach and his voice comes out low and murderous. He swears he will cut Seijin's throat to avenge his son. A splash of red identifies him fully as Richard Neville the ruler and head of the royalist faction. He is known as the Night King himself. His greatsword sweeps across the arena in a horizontal arc that whips up violent gusts of air. It reverses direction and comes back the other way. Our boy steps lightly through the storm and traces his own blade along the greatsword's trajectory. Richard's face contorts in disbelief. He demands to know when Seojin did that and what kind of trick he used. Yellow slashes bloom across the training ground as Seojin keeps testing possible lines across Richard's massive blade one after another. From a safe distance, Alpaca is pretending to sweat. He sighs loudly for the audience, saying that Seojin could not find the weak point this time either. He asks whether it is not taking a bit too long and tells the chat not to tell him he actually cannot find it. The guy still gliding between Richard's swings glances over at Alpaca with a small dry look. He asks whether Alpaca actually thought he would not be able to find it. Alpaca's whole face freezes. He yells, asking how Seojin knew he was saying that from all the way over there. The chat is already spiraling. One viewer howls yes. Another calls it a fail. Someone types that they are gonna lose everything. A hostile chatter fires off telling Nameless to watch his back at night. Alpaca doubles down on the excuse with the sweetest chibi smile. According to the viewers, he announces that Richard's weapon is made of a special legendary material. It might not even have a weak point at all. Seojin turns his head slightly and asks, "Oh, is that so?" Then he says it plainly. He will just check whether it is really not there. Richard Neville roars and unleashes a massive downward chop that could split the training ground in half. Yellow light bursts around the young man as he slips inside the guard and starts tracing curves across the armor plating this time. The pauldron and the vambrace and the cuirass. Richard howls that how many times is he going to pull the same trick and that it will not work on him, but the answer keeps arriving in a shower of yellow sparks. Alpaca's eyes go wide. He screams that it went in. Armor plates split apart across Richard's body. The skill window blooms once, then twice, then 3 times in rapid succession. Weakness detection quest progress 4 of 10. Then it climbs to 5, then 6, then 7, then 8, then 9. The counter rockets upward across the corner of the display. Richard Neville staggers with pieces of his once legendary armor spinning through the air around him. The chat wails together, asking what that was with trailing question marks. Alpaca actually grabs his own hair with both hands, blushing bright red. The final plates crack open with one last yellow flash across Richard's shoulder guard. He roars in pure disbelief as the last piece drops to the floor. A giant system window blooms across the whole display, reading 10 of 10, and announcing that the skill has been acquired. Weakness detection is now confirmed. Our boy exhales quietly and then looks back over his shoulder at Alpaca, with a small dangerous smile spreading across his face. He says lightly that he made a mistake. It turns out that the sword itself was the one thing without a weak point. But the body and the armor covering it most certainly does have one. Seijin finishes up at the studio and lets out a long breath. Lee Suhan tells him he did great today and our boy immediately drops into a full 90-degree bow. Our boy thanks Suhan for letting him use the capsule and explains that he learned a lot from the experience. Suhan does not take the compliment well at all. He mutters that hearing praise from a guy with Seijin's level of skill feels unpleasant in that competitive way of his that never quite turns off. Meanwhile, Alpaca's chat is in full meltdown mode. Viewers are spamming the stream demanding he bring Seijin out already. They tell Alpaca to get out and call him by name and order him to drag Seijin in front of the camera right now. Alpaca tries to calm them down and tells them to stop going crazy, but nobody listens. He gives up fighting the tide and announces that Seijin says he is ready. With the energy of a ring announcer, Alpaca asks the chat to please welcome Jin Seijin. Our boy walks in and sits down in front of the camera and greets everyone with a simple hello. He introduces himself as Jin Seijin, a travel streamer. This is the first time the audience gets to see his real face. The chat loses its mind. Hashtags flood the screen with things reading Peerless Beauty and Real Pretty Boy and Perfect Bare Face Beauty. Alpaca grins proudly and asks the viewers what they think. He points out that Sejun looks exactly like his avatar, just like he promised. The chat agrees but immediately turns on Alpaca. Viewers note that Sejun is even more handsome in real life and that the world is unfair. Others ask why Alpaca is so happy about it. One viewer brings up how Alpaca touched up his nose and eyes and shaved his jawline for his own avatar. Alpaca snaps back and insists his face was scanned exactly as it looked in his 20s. The chat is merciless. They tell him it was not just the weight gain and that Father Time clearly got to him. They ask Sejun to move a little because he is not fitting in the camera view, and the chat immediately calls him out for being self-conscious. Alpaca announces that he is stepping out to get dinner ready since their next schedule is a dinner gathering. A viewer with the handle Tokboki Appraiser posts that Alpaca is running away. The young man smiles and explains that Alpaca is just preparing the food and nothing more. With Alpaca gone, our boy is left alone in front of the camera for the first time. Alpaca had opened donations and set the minimum to 50,000 won before leaving. The money starts piling in immediately. The first donation reads simply that the sender loves him. Sejun thanks the person with a smile but asks if they are actually a female viewer. The chat erupts in laughter. A string of game-related questions follows after that. One viewer brings up weak point detection and asks him to show more examples of the lines. The skill is the whole reason for today's collab stream, and it is a newly unlocked ability that lets him see exploitable weak points on equipment. The guy explains that if they want to see more cases, they should come watch his stream tomorrow. He adds that there are probably players much better than him who will unlock the skill soon and share it with everyone. Right on cue, a familiar figure bursts in with arms wide open. Kim Tae-woo announces that the friend is him. He proudly tells the audience that he and Sejun have been friends since high school and that they are currently living together. Tae-woo does not stop there. He pulls out his phone and starts sharing clips and stories about living with Sejun. He tells the viewers about the time Sejun was squatting next to the capsule blowing air on it with a hand fan. The chat absolutely loses it, and even the young man looks caught off guard by the story getting out. Tae-woo keeps going and feeds the audience embarrassing details while Sejun sits there trying to keep his composure. After the commotion settles, both of them sit down for dinner with Alpaca. The table is set with grilled meat and side dishes and the mood turns warmer. Sejun mentions that it was a good meal and thanks Alpaca for everything. He says he learned a lot. Alpaca waves the gratitude away and tells our boy that he is the one who learned from watching him play. The two go back and forth modestly, with neither willing to take full credit. Then Alpaca slaps his hand on the table. His expression shifts to something more serious and he leans forward. He asks Sejun whether it would be okay if he introduced him to someone he knows. The guy pauses mid-bite and looks up. He repeats the words back, asking who exactly this someone is. The dinner continues, and between bites of grilled meat the conversation drifts toward how Lee Suhan and Alpaca first started working together. Suhan explains that back in the day Alpaca was a tiny streamer with barely 100 viewers who could not even afford an editor. He had created a channel and abandoned it. Suhan had been one of those early viewers, and at the time he was working as a highly valued editor at his company. He saw something in Alpaca that nobody else did and proposed they grow the channel together. By chance, he says he had started watching Alpaca's broadcast and got hooked. He was so confident in the potential that he left his stable job to go all in. The gamble paid off. With a proper editor organizing and polishing the chaotic capsule footage, Alpaca's channel took off. Suhan now earns far more, splitting the revenue 50-50 than he ever did at his old company. Sojun listens quietly and murmurs the word editor to himself, turning it over in his head. Suhan even tells our boy that if he cannot find one on his own, Suhan would be willing to edit his videos too. Later that night, Sojun sits alone on the veranda at home with a beer in hand. He had been watching community posts and video compilations about Shin Haeon, the legendary champion whose goal remains winning the Leos. The highlight reel alone has 750,000 views in a week. Beyond the railing stands the plum tree Sejun planted himself. He cracks the can open and takes a long drink. His original plan was simple: get into the tournament and win a capsule and quit streaming. That was it. But streaming turned out to be more than he expected. Playing games with people watching and teasing each other and sharing the experience together. All of it surprised him by being fun. The problem is that he cannot plan content or edit footage on his own, and doing it solo is not enough. He thinks about how naturally the young streamers he met today work together and wonders whether he has been missing something this whole time. The young man stares out past the railing and the question surfaces quietly. He asks himself whether he was lonely. The plum tree stands bare against the night sky, and for a moment a memory of his past life drifts in. A figure in pale robes walking beneath blossoming plum trees with red petals floating in still air. The cold floor of the veranda under his hand feels the same as the stone floor from the night his master found him chained at the black market. It is not exactly a good memory, but somehow it calms him down. Our boy sighs and admits he does not know what to do. Then he shakes it off. He decides it has been a while since he last went to the gym and that moving his body will clear his head. The next morning the story shifts to a boxing gym frequented by celebrities and professional fighters. This is Lee Dong-soo, a starting player for the famous pro gaming team Freefall. His team finished runner-up at the latest World Championship. That is a result anyone would call incredible, but in the world of competition anything short of first means nothing. The coach assigned each player a special training regimen, and Dong-soo's assignment is to learn how to fight for real and build stamina. He has been coming to this gym for 2 weeks and every single day the owner has him running on the treadmill and drilling basics. Dong-soo is fed up. He tells the gym owner that he is a professional and that at his level he has basically mastered controlling his body in virtual reality. He says he wants real combat training. The gym owner snorts and waves him off. Fine, he says they will do a sparring session today, but Dong-soo needs to get on the treadmill first. Dong-soo lights up and asks if he gets to pick his opponent. The owner tells him to do whatever he wants because he is not beating anyone here anyway. The guy grins wide. He is 18 years old and a high school dropout turned successful pro gamer, but at his core he is still a hot-blooded kid who loves a challenge. He starts running harder than usual, scanning everyone in the gym for a potential sparring partner. He does not want someone with too much of a weight advantage, just someone he can test himself against. Then the front door opens and someone walks in. Dong-soo freezes on the treadmill. The face is annoyingly handsome and it matches exactly. This is the streamer one of his teammates kept going on about, the one whose clips Dong-soo had briefly watched out of obligation. In Dong-soo's mind the guy was not even that good, just some tiny streamer on his third day who somehow ended up trending. He watches Sejun greet the gym owner and they clearly already know each other. Our boy does not look especially muscular either. Dong-soo's eyes narrow. As a first sparring opponent he thinks this one is perfect. Dong-soo hops off the treadmill and approaches. He introduces himself and mentions he recognized Sejun from the broadcast. The young man takes it in stride and responds calmly. Dong-soo says he is pretty good with people and asks if Sejun would be willing to spar. Sejun agrees without much fuss and suggests they head to the ring. Dong-soo grins wider and adds that of course nobody here is as good as him. Our boy's eyes sharpen for just a second. He replies that he sees but then trails off. Dong-soo is confused. He asks who Sejun Evan is because something about the way this guy carries himself does not match what Dong-soo expected. Sejun does not answer. Instead he simply says he will let Dong-soo find out in 5 minutes and reminds him that this is a gym, not a game. Sejun and his father walk home together from the gym. This is Jin Ha-jin, a hardcore PC gamer who happens to own the buildings where both he and Sejun live. Ha-jin gently scolds his son for going too hard on the sparring partner earlier and points out that the kid looked like an ordinary person based on his build. Our boy waves the concern away and explains that the guy actually had real talent for fighting and was still in the middle of building his body. Nothing to worry about. Ha-jin lets it go and shifts the conversation to streaming. He asks how things are going. Sejun simply answers that yes, things are fine. Ha-jin, ever the supportive dad, offers a tip. He suggests his son try playing Stellarcraft, arguing that PC games are making a comeback and it could be a wide open market. For the record, PC gaming is absolutely not making a comeback. Ha-jin is just a die-hard fan trying to get his son interested. The young man is not remotely interested and the suggestion falls flat. Ha-jin tries pushing the recommendation harder, getting visibly annoyed that his own son will not even hear him out. Sejun deflects and changes the subject by showing his dad the follower count on his streaming page. Ha-jin nearly spits out his coffee. The number reads 3,000 followers and he cannot believe it. Just yesterday the number was around 400 and now it has more than doubled from the collab alone. Then it tripled again after Lee Soo-han edited the highlights into short clips and one of them hit the trending gaming category. Ha-jin sputters and asks how that kind of luck is even possible. He warns Sejun not to be doing anything weird for attention because if his mother finds out she will confiscate the capsule on the spot. Back home the guy opens the community forums before starting his stream. The entire front page is dominated by posts about him and Alpaca from yesterday's collab. Posts about his face reveal and about lines and about the assassin of Joseon winning 25 million points on a 1% bet. There is also the Richard brute force strategy that nobody else can replicate. Every single post has over 30 upvotes. Nobody is mocking him for being a nobody anymore. Then Taewoo sends him a link with a laughing message. Our boy clicks through and finds a heavily downvoted hidden post titled something along the lines of why streamer Jin So-jin is obviously a hacker. The argument is that because his explanation for seeing lines was vague and nobody else has managed to do it, he must be either a secret developer or a cheater. Sojin reads the whole thing and bursts out laughing. He remembers Taewoo once telling him that once you get famous, people will find different reasons to hate you. After thinking about it, he even admits the developer theory sounds kind of believable. He sends a report to the Dawn of the Assassin's homepage, chuckling the whole time, and climbs into his capsule. He titles the stream with 2 words that immediately set the community on fire. The title reads, "I have made a confession." It is not actually a clarification stream. It is bait, and our boy knows exactly what he is doing. Our boy wonders to himself how many people will show up today. The answer comes fast. 400 viewers pour in within seconds of going live. Then it jumps to 700, then 1,300, then 1,500. In barely a minute, the count blows past every estimate he and Taewoo predicted. The story cuts away to the offices of Moviesoft Korea, the studio behind Dawn of the Assassination Squad. Eve Paimo sits at his desk while a subordinate storms in looking rattled. The subordinate reports that the viewer numbers are already unprecedented and that the collab pushed everything faster than expected. Paimo asks what the problem is. The subordinate brings up footage on a laptop and shows him a clip of Seijin fighting a ruler. Paimo watches the gameplay and cannot believe what he is seeing. He asks how this is even possible, and whether the line Seijin is exploiting might be a bug. The subordinate confirms they already checked and it is not a bug. Paimo presses him to explain what is actually happening. The subordinate adjusts his glasses and switches into what can only be described as full fanboy presentation mode. He announces that as someone who became a fan of Seijin after watching the stream, he will now explain. The subordinate lays it out. It appears Seijin grasped the attack patterns and is somehow able to see and target the critical weak points consistently in real time. They found the same traces in his earlier fights as well. Paimo cuts through the enthusiasm and asks what this means for them right now. The answer lands hard. The fragment of order. The young man already has 2 of the 4 fragments obtained by brute-forcing rulers that no other player has managed to kill through direct combat. The fragments are part of a hidden system that Paimo personally designed and gated behind extreme difficulty to ensure a carefully timed reveal. A teaser video for the next phase of the game was already scheduled to drop at exactly the right moment. Everything was natural yet thoroughly calculated and designed to build anticipation without forcing anything. But that perfect calculation has now gone horribly wrong because of one single player. Paimo asks how long they plan to complete the project. 1 month comes the answer. If they rush, about a week. Then he asks the real question. What is the probability that the streamer will gather all 4 fragments of order within that time? The subordinate's eyes light up behind his glasses. He declares with absolute confidence that he can answer that for sure. The probability, he says, is 100%. Paimo's expression goes dark. He calls the subordinate a nuisance and tells him to get out. Late at night in the Moviesoft Korea office, Eve Paimo sits alone at his desk replaying Sojin's stream footage. The video has already passed 120,000 views and is still climbing. Paimo watches a clip of Sojin dismantling Richard Neville's heavy armor and catching Drake's location through the hidden route. He cannot look away. Paimo rewinds and pauses and replays. The execution is clean. The route Sojin found to reach Drake was one that Paimo himself designed, and seeing it finally uncovered after all this time fills him with something he did not expect to feel. It is not frustration and it is not worry either. It is satisfaction. Paimo leans back in his chair and stares at the ceiling. Seeing players enjoy the game he poured his soul into in their own unique ways is exactly what he wanted. Watching users react with surprise and think to themselves that this works too. That is exactly the kind of response his team had hoped for when they built an open world. After replaying the clips one more time, Paimo quietly presses the follow button on Sojin's channel. Elsewhere, Sojin sits at his computer and opens his streaming page. His follower count now sits at 1,700. The chat immediately starts pouring in the moment he goes live. Viewers flood in, calling out his nickname and asking what the stream title means and spamming greetings. The chat moves at a speed he has never dealt with before. Our boy notes that the chat is flying now that the viewership has grown, and he mentions that he prepared something for exactly this situation. Our boy calls out 3 usernames and asks if they are all here. Joseon's assassin, the 25 million point legend, confirms first. The other moderators check in right behind him. The young man explains that these are viewers who watched every stream since day one and never caused trouble. They volunteered when he asked them to help manage chat. He pulls up the channel rules, which are exactly 3 lines long. Keep the conversation related to the broadcast. If you see an annoying message, whisper a moderator instead of fighting in chat, and you know what you should not do. Right. The chat instantly summarizes it as just use your common sense. Seo-jun nods and confirms that unless something is really severe, nobody will get a warning. He prefers a free-flowing atmosphere. Then they ask about the stream title. Seo-jun shifts his tone and explains that apparently quite a few people have doubts about how he found the weak points. He says it is partially his fault for not explaining properly and offers an apology. The chat tells him he does not look sorry at all. Our boy ignores that and states plainly that he is not hacking and he is not connected to the developers. The chat asks why he is bringing up hacking himself. He nods and explains the pattern he identified for finding weak points. It involves connecting the parts of equipment that wear down the most through trajectories that split apart easily. The chat does not understand a word of it. Then Sejun's expression turns serious. He tells the viewers that since he already has weakness detection unlocked, people could claim he hacked the capsule no matter what he shows. So he took care of it himself. He reported himself. The screen displays the inquiry he sent to Dawn of the Assassins. The subject line reads hack report and the body says he thinks he may have unknowingly been using hacks and asks the developers to please check. The chat absolutely loses it. Viewers realize that is why the stream title says he made a confession. He turned himself in so the game company would prove his innocence for free. Before the laughter dies down, the young man drops his serious face and stretches and announces they are getting into the game now. A mission notification pops up on the broadcast. Someone has set a challenge for him. Clear the Magic Tower Lord without using weakness detection. The reward is 1,000,000 won. The chat explodes at the number. One viewer asks whether the Magic Tower Lord even has anything you can use weakness detection on since mages do not wear equipment. Another wonders if that means magic itself can be split apart and if knowing that makes the donor an actual developer. Our boy himself murmurs that he wonders whether this really could be from the developer. He had already been planning to go to the Magic Tower anyway. In the city of Altian, this is Aetherius Spire, a territory ruled by mages. Towering Gothic architecture stretches toward the sky with magical circles spinning overhead and blue energy pulsing through the stone. It is the most dangerous district Altian, the kind of place most players would not dare enter without serious preparation. The guy's approach is exactly what the chat expects from him by now. He walks straight through the front gate. The chat lights up. One viewer types that he is infiltrating the Aetherius Spire by walking through the front door. Sejun admits he was worried the broadcast would be too standard and boring, so he only looked up the basics. Inside, the first few floors feel nothing more than a market. Ordinary people walk around and actual mages are rarer than expected. The chat confirms that floors 1 through 3 are essentially a shopping district and the real challenge begins on floor 4. Sejun makes his way upward until he hits a restricted area. A guard steps forward and tells him he cannot enter beyond this point. Before the guard man can respond, Sejun strikes. The hit lands clean and the guard's body locks up. He cannot move. A mage steps from the shadows laughing and mocks the intruder for thinking he could just walk into the upper floors of the spire. Then something shifts behind his eyes. The young man breaks free and leaps upward through a burst of energy.